entombed for 3,000 years, raft growing in me. I have lived an eternity, suspended in darkness. Release me. Time have run out. Curse fills the room. Curiously open my tomb. Rising from the cradle of death, my sentence has come to an end. Release me, release me, wasting and running. Release me, release me. My curse is your curse. Death is the gift I bring. In my hands, I feel no remorse. This is the mommy's curse. Release me, release me, wasting and running. Release me, release me.
A dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the night. When you see the flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now our grave. Yo, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo, let the ocean winds blow. Yo, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo, let the ocean wind blow.
Who's holding my hand in the darkness? Seeing ghosts down the hallway. There's a presence, bedroom shadows, cloaked and haunting me. Cold hand touching me. Fear overwhelming me. Tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes. A breath on my neck. Floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on. I wake up paralyzed. Ghostly apparition hovering over me, asking what it wants to know. I'm shaking now, it calls out my name, cloaked and haunting me. Cold hand touching me. Fear overwhelming me. Tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes. A breath on my neck. Floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on. I wake up paralyzed.
All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. Well, let's change the banners here a little bit. All right. So the weather is bad down here. Okay, really bad. It's well below freezing. But the worst part about today is that up north. And northern Texas is a lot worse than it is down here. Everybody's driving like crap. And apparently Texas is losing to Ohio State. That sucks. Like my shirt. Can't read it because it's at the bottom there. That means soldier for Christ or soldier of Christ. That's what that means. So I got some really funky emails from some people basically telling me that I needed to tone it down with the God stuff.
So just another day.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a little worse than usual. And then I was told from the, get this, I got a really bad comment that was on the, I didn't take it down. I think maybe Nelly did, but it was on the Lusa episode we just did, that we just dropped. And yeah, they were basically bashing me for not allowing my guests to talk more. I'm like, we didn't have guests. And that is a pre-recorded episode, which is just me basically telling the stories. So I don't know what they were driving at. I don't know
Or
what
what they were
getting at.
smoking.
And I was like, dude, that's not those episodes are just an hour of me talking and a little bit of you guys' input. That's what that is. So I don't know. Yeah, D says Squid will be happy. I don't give a crap if he's happy. I don't want him to be happy. I want to be happy. I want Texas to win. I don't care what Squid wants. Squid wants Ohio State to win. No, but Texas has the ball. 3rd and goal at the OSU 8. So that's interesting. We have no way to see what's happening, but if they can punch it in, then then it'll go into 21-21. I didn't have high hopes for this game. I knew they weren't going to get blowed out because we're not Tennessee and we're not Oregon. And everybody thought Texas is going to get blown out. I kept saying that all week because they blew out the other two teams. Those are people who don't know how football works. I know how football works, and I know that it's the playoffs, dude. Whether it's college, pro, doesn't matter. High school, more likely in high school it would happen, not in the pros and not in college. You're going to play at least one tough, one close game in the postseason. Okay, it's very rare that you just steamroll all your opponents. I think, and now it's 4th and goal, so nothing happened. Probably because Ewers isn't the guy, in my opinion. But I don't even know if he's in there right now. So, but I can tell you this, I've only seen it in the pros a couple times where one team just absolutely steamrolled all their opponents and then steamrolled their Super Bowl opponent. The 85 Bears, the 86 Giants, and I believe it was the 1991 Washington Redskins. The Cowboys never even did it.
Yeah.
Like they handled in 93, they handled the Packers and the Niners. They B-slapped them pretty hard. But then the Bills gave them some trouble in the first half, and then they steamrolled them in the second half. So it was a lot closer until the second half of the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 28. And then in Super Bowl 30, they beat the Packers pretty handily in the NFC Championship. And then the game before that was the Eagles. They beat them pretty handily. And they beat the Steelers. It wasn't really close as like everybody tries to paint it out because there's so many Steelers fans. They're like, oh, it was closer. Larry Brown's interceptions. I know Larry Brown personally, actually. And I was like, yeah, nah, no, you're thinking that, but that's not really true. What just happened here? Oh, so Ohio State just scored.
Oh, great. Well, the game's over.
So that's it. 1 minute Texas was at the OU something, and now Ohio State just won. Just won. They just punched it, so it's over. Well, I kind of had a feeling, but at least we didn't get blowed out. That's all I was thinking was that, whatever. I grew up with my dad, both of us being diehard Longhorn fans. I'm going to bring on my guest. We have a guest tonight. The lovely
What's her face?
I couldn't think of another adjective. I was going to say very intuitive or inquisitive or whatever, but I couldn't think of anything. So I just
That's cool.
So
very, verbose.
The nicest, kindest people in the field.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
With one of the coolest backdrops, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I need to take the Christmas stuff down.
And that there are some really nice females in this field, but not many of them have brains and beauty. You do.
No, thank you.
The Blondes and Booze come to mind. I like
Mhm.
that. My wife. There's Jill
Absolutely.
Remmenschneider, and then that's about it. I'm joking because I watch every female now is going to message me and tell me
You're going to get a barrage of names now.
I get a bunch of hate because I said that. Okay. Somebody says Monica's been making the rounds. You've been making the rounds, Monica?
I didn't think I was, but I'm okay. I mean, I have my show. I go on with Joe typically Friday nights, and then I go on with BMR on Saturday nights.
Okay,
Late.
so you'll be on tomorrow night, huh?
Yeah.
BMR had a show earlier today. It was about werewolves and dogma, I believe. Wasn't it earlier today?
I believe so. He does so many shows. I mean, Rob's really, I mean, his channel is his life really outside of football right now.
Yeah, well, the Lions, because they're so good. He's loving life. If you're a
I
Cowboy
know.
fan,
He
you're not-
ditched me for New Orleans next weekend because of the playoffs. He couldn't be away
Wow.
from home.
Well, you got to realize something too. If you're a Lions fan, they haven't won a championship since the merger of the NFL AFL, which is before the 60s. I looked it up. I think that the Lions are one of a handful of teams who have never been to the Super Bowl. Now, I looked this up a while back. This was years ago, but I believe that go look it up right now for how long they've won an NFL championship, but I believe it was like 1957 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Them in Cleveland, but Cleveland and them in Green Bay and Washington, they used to always win back in the old days. But this was back when there was no NFL, AFL. It was a totally different thing.
Right.
The AFL became a thing back in 1960.
Yep, it was 1957.
1957. There you go. I was right. I have a good memory. So 1957, I looked that up a while back. That was like, I think that was when the Cowboys played them in the playoffs years ago. So nothing changed. I know that. I rooted for them really hard against the Niners, because,
Hey, now.
I hate the 49ers.
That is my team.
I hate them so bad. And I hate anybody from California. Not anybody.
Can't say that.
Any team from
I
California.
hate any team from California, okay? I don't like the Rams for nothing. I don't like any of them. The only time I've ever rooted for the Dodgers was in the World Series against the Yankees.
That's hilarious.
And I'm not ashamed to admit I put some money on it because I don't like the
I
Yankees.
don't like them that much.
I don't
Just
like
that
them
much.
a whole lot. I'm a Red Sox fan. That I started being a Red Sox fan because of my hatred for the Yankees, and it really came to the forefront when in 2004 when the Red Sox came from behind, down 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And those obnoxious New Yorkers were like, "Who's your daddy?" with the way with Pedro. The Red Sox came storming back and won 4 straight, rolled into the World Series and beat the Cardinals that had beaten my Astros that year in the National League Championship. So I was stoked, and after that, I was sold. I was a Red Sox fan forever. So it's Astros, Rangers, and then the Red Sox, and then those are my baseball teams right there. I love the Red Sox. I've been rooting for them for a long time.
Well, that's good. It's unfortunate that you don't care for my teams, but my father raised me with a deep-seated hatred for the Cowboys.
Of course, everybody does because you hate the winner.
Deep.
You hate the winner. Do you know how many big games they've won? I mean, go look at it.
This is back in the 80s, right? When the Niners and the Cowboys were constantly, Super Bowl battling each other. It seemed like, and I couldn't understand why my father hated the Cowboys so much. And when I finally asked him, he said, they declared themselves America's team, and I don't remember voting on that. I don't remember voting on that. Who the hell did they think they are to declare themselves America's team?
But that's the thing. They didn't. That was an announcer that did that.
Well, my father took it differently.
It was Howard Cosell, I believe, that said that. He goes, America's team, and then it just stuck.
Everybody's hackles went up, and everybody hates the Cowboys.
The thing is, though, I mean, like, if you're a Cowboys fan, and folks, we're just getting time here till we get some people in here, but if you're a Cowboys fan, okay, you have a set number of rivals coming out the gate. First and foremost, you have the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Giants, who are now the Redskins, are now the Commanders, whatever. You're always going to have them hate you. Those are your division rivals. But you also have the Cardinals, who don't like you at all because for 30 years or 20 years, whatever it was, they were in your division too. And you thumped them twice a year. So I know that I have a good friend. He's out in Arizona. He hates us bad. And we could give a crap about them. But then you also have the Packers because in the 60s and 66 and 67, you had the Ice Bowl. And then you had the frozen Texas game where they were both played in really bad weather, and the Cowboys lost both of those to the Packers. But then in the 90s, the Cowboys beat the Packers I think it was something like 9 games straight. Like they thumped them in the playoffs like 3 or 4 times, and they beat them during the regular season. The 90s belonged to the Cowboys. Brett Favre beat the Cowboys 1 time in the 90s. It was horrible. And then the 2000s come along, and Aaron Rodgers, him and the refs, in my opinion, in 2016, it was ridiculous, dude. It should have been defensive holding at the very least, but they didn't call it. But anyway. And then, of course, Des Bryant and the catch at Lambeau Field. We should have had that game. We had beaten the Seahawks earlier in the year, and I figured we had their number. If we would have beaten the Packers that year, we would have been in the Super Bowl. But it didn't happen. So the Packers have a thing with the Cowboys. And, of course, last year, the Packers rolled into Texas Stadium and beat the living crap out of them. And then the Niners. Now, if you go to the Niners, what happened to the Niners was 70, 71, and 72. The Cowboys beat the Niners 3 times in a row in the playoffs. Can you imagine you lose 3 years in a row to the same team? You're not going to like them.
Yeah.
And 2 of those were NFC championship games. And one of them, the Cowboys went on to beat the Dolphins, win the Super Bowl. So you have the Colts. The first one was they went to play the Colts, who were in the NFL power, but they had been moved over to the AFL and then the AFC, whatever, when they joined.
Mm-hmm.
So the Colts beat the Cowboys, and then the next year they played the Niners, beat them again, and then went on to win the Super Bowl against the Dolphins. But I don't know that the Niners could have beaten that Dolphins team with Kick and Zonka and all those guys. I don't know. Bob Greasy. Shula had a hell of a squad, but the Cowboys were ready for him, and the Cowboys had that good defense. Now, the third year, it was in 72, but the playoff game, I think, was played in 73 in the January. They went out to what was the name of that field? Kaiser Field. It was called Kaiser Field or Kaiser Field in San Francisco. And the Cowboys went out there, and they scored I think it was 16 points in 2.5 minutes or some ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
The Niners were beating them 28-13 or some ridiculous crap. And Roger Staubach comes in the game. Craig Morton wasn't doing anything, and Staubach led them to an unbelievable victory. And they advanced to the NFC championship game. I think they were defeated that year in the NFC championship game by the Vikings, I believe. And then, but still, the Niners once again were put out by them. And then the Niners weren't good again. That's when they had Brody as the quarterback. He was pretty good. But then they weren't good again until the early 80s, right? And then in the early 80s, Montana came along, and it wasn't instantaneous. He got the hell beat out of him by Dallas, I think in 81. Or 1980, and then 81, they managed to defeat them. I believe it was 81, and then there was the 82 playoffs. But it was the NFC Championship, the catch. Dwight Clark caught that ball in the back of the end zone. And it was crazy because Joe Montana said he was just throwing it away. He had Randy White and Too Tall Jones in his face. Everson Walls had the coverage, and he just threw it up out of the end zone. And Dwight Clark, I guess he was eating his Wheaties. He jumps up and he catches that ball in the back of the end zone, comes down with it, and the Niners take the lead. But it wasn't over. People don't realize that if it wasn't for a shoestring tackle of Drew Pearson, I forgot the guy who did it. But I saw an interview with Montana, and he said he tells his kids that he goes, I wouldn't have won that first Super Bowl if whoever that was hadn't just barely clipped Drew Pearson, because Drew Pearson was off to the races, and he caught him. Because the Cowboys probably would have scored a touchdown and then would have ended up winning by 6. But no, he got taken down, and then they were short out of field goal range, just out of field goal range, and the Niners won by 1 point, 28-27. Then you fast forward to 1992, Cowboys and Niners again. Niners win 14-2. Cowboys were 13-3. They went out to San Francisco after they had defeated the Eagles. The Niners had wrestled down in the mud the defending Super Bowl champion Redskins. Ugly game. I watched part of that. And I thought, man, this is a good team. The Redskins were a good team, but the Niners took it to them. And I thought the Cowboys are going to have to play their best game to win against these guys. And they did. And they won 30-20. 93 belonged completely to the Cowboys in that rivalry. It was 26, I believe, 14 or something like that. Middle of the season, Cowboys just dominated them at Texas Stadium. And then later at Texas Stadium in the NFC Championship, the Cowboys absolutely destroyed them. And it was bad. And I remember Merton Hanks saying in one of these documentaries, he's like, we could have played 8 quarters and it would have just been worse and worse and worse. Because we couldn't stop Emmitt Smith. We couldn't get to Troy Aikman. He goes, it was terrible. So that Carmen Policy and what's his name? Eddie DiBartello, the owner, and Carmen Policy, his general manager, were coming down the elevator at Texas Stadium, and they looked at each other and they said, we have to do something about the Cowboys. So they did. They went out and they hired 13 mercenaries based on their winning percentage. This is a true story. They based on their winning percentage against the Cowboys. They had Toy Cook. They had Sam Mills. They got Gary Plummer. They got Ken Norton Jr. from the Cowboys. Deion Sanders is the most notable one. But there was a whole slew of them that they took on to defeat Dallas. And all their whole job was to beat the Cowboys. But when you build a team just to beat one other team, you forget that there are other teams out there that still exist. And that happened to them in 95. They managed to dethrone the Cowboys in 94, but in 95, funny thing happened. They were in the NFC divisional playoffs, and the Packers whooped their ass because they forgot that the Packers head coach, Mike Holmgren, was the understudy. He was one of Bill Walsh's understudies. And so he knew that West Coast offense, so he beat him. And Seifert was like, just not up to the challenge. Holmgren and the Packers put the Niners out again in 97, and I believe in 99 or something like that, or something. I don't remember what it was. 3 out of 4 times they played them, and the Packers kept beating them, but the Cowboys always had the Packers number. So people think that the Niners tipped the scales and then that was it, but that wasn't it. My memory, okay, I remember this. In 1995, yes, the Niners beat the Cowboys twice, regular season and the NFC Championship. 94, sorry. In 1995, they came to Texas Stadium, beat the crap out of us with Elvis Gerbach. Then we didn't play him in the playoffs. But then in 96, we went back out there to Candlestick Park, the big muddy pool of whatever it is, and defeated them. And that was the year that Willie Brown, the mayor, said that Elvis Gerbach was a quote-unquote disgrace to humanity.
Oh.
Because he lost to the Cowboys. And Willie Brown, they said literally, this is the urban legend. Willie Brown, that was Kamala Harris's boss, by the way. Willie Brown rolled around on the ground, beating his hands and feet on the ground. This is what his people say he did. He was so upset. He was saying, anybody but the Cowboys, anybody but the Cowboys. I think, me personally, and not to disparage the guy, because if this isn't true, it's not true. But I'm pretty sure that he had money on it, because they were saying that after that he had sold his car and some other stuff. So I'm thinking he probably put a lot of money on that game and then he lost it. The funny thing about 96, and I'll tell you, the Cowboys destroyed the best teams that they played. They beat the Niners. They beat the Packers. Okay. The Packers became the eventual Super Bowl champions that year. And they beat the crap out of the Patriots. And the Patriots were the team that they played in the Super Bowl that the Packers played. So they beat all of the best teams that they played and then lost to some absolute dog crap teams. And then go into the playoffs. They destroy Minnesota in the first round. And then they go up to Carolina and just stick their thumb up their butt and lose. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this upstart Carolina team. But Carolina and Jacksonville, they had this supplemental draft that they've never done again because they gave those teams too much power. And in both of their second years, Jacksonville Jaguars and Carolina Panthers both went to their respective conference championships. Never should have happened. Then the Browns come along, after they were already a team, and then they became the Ravens because of Modell and all that. They come around and everybody's like, oh, we can't give them everything like we did those other teams. So the Browns got absolute dog shit, and then they sucked ever since. And I felt so bad for them. It sucked. Same thing with the Texans. But my Texans are in there, and I don't expect much. They might get past San Diego. They might not. But if they do, I mean, who are they? Who are they? It's just a matter of who they're going to lose to. I mean, they're not that good. And the Bucks, they're good enough to win the NFC South again for 4 years in a row. But come on. I mean, it's a participation trophy. And folks, I'm going to say this. They need to change the playoff format in the pros. I'm telling you right now, a team that is 9-8 doesn't need to be hosting a team that is 14-3. Okay, that 14-3 team, whether they're a wild card or not, you win the division. Okay, you go to the playoffs. But you need to go travel to that other team. The Vikings got host because they lost to the Lions. And so they're a 14-3 team that's going to have to go travel to a absolute dog crap team, which I think is just no justice in that. But my prediction, the Bucks will get past the first round. They will defeat Washington. But I don't think they'll do anything beyond that. Texans might get past the Chargers. That's it. And then after that, I don't give a crap about football for the rest of the year. I'm done.
You're going to check out after that?
Yep. Texas loses tonight. I hope Ohio State defeats Notre Dame by 50 points. I don't like Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame.
For a damn thing. And it's this weird thing where, like, if, a lot of my family is Catholic, especially my mom's side. I have a few on my dad's side, mostly my mom's. And I don't have anything against them personally, but, like, I'm not obligated to root for them because they're a Catholic school. I got family that they're like, Notre Dame, you got to root for Notre Dame.
What?
Yeah, because they're a Catholic school. My aunt knew nothing about football, baseball, anything, but she would always say, oh, Notre Dame. That was just because she was a Notre Dame fan by default because she was a diehard Catholic. So my grandmother was kind of that way too. She was like, if I had a team, it would be Notre Dame. I'm like, yeah, of course, because they're Catholic. Notre Dame is the richest school in the country. Texas and Ohio State are the number 1 and number 2 largest schools in the country, but they are not the richest. They do have a lot of money, though. And I promise you, because of that money, they are going to be in the playoffs probably every year. It's going to be Texas, Ohio State. I wouldn't be surprised to see Baylor because Baylor's got that Baptist money. They're going to be in there. SMU is in there because of that money.
No.
SMU like, hey, now, we got to get them Pony Express back now. Come on now, Hank. We got that money. And that's the only reason they're in there, because of the money. This transfer portal changes everything. Look at what happened with what's his face? That guy from Georgia. He transferred. His draft stock went down because he was the quarterback for Georgia, but he announced today or yesterday that he was going to the transfer portal, and now he's not going to be with Georgia. What's his name? Look up the quarterback's name. I don't want to mess it up. For Georgia, he's going to be playing somewhere else, and he's not going to go to the pros because his draft stock went down from all the bad, offensive, whatever, but he's going to try somewhere else and try to rebound, and then maybe his draft stock will go back up. That's what's so weird, because Ewers may go into the transfer portal and go to another team and make a bunch of money, and he'll make more than he would going into the pros, and it'll give him another year.
Carson
Beck, that's who it is. He went to the transfer portal. And then that dummy from the Aggies, that receiver, he went into the transfer portal. But let me tell you something, buddy. You're going to Georgia now with no quarterback. So good luck. Typical dumb Aggie move there. He just the Aggie fans are pretty down on him. I don't blame him. He's an idiot. Like, why would you do that? And then Carson Beck's like, well, I don't know who's going to throw to you because I'm leaving. So that's college football now, folks. But I agree. These people should have been getting paid all along. People are like, oh, they never should get paid. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to play football and put your life on the line at risk, and very slim chance you might make it to the pros. And, they made it extremely difficult for you to go to another program. You had to sit out and do all this. I mean, there's all this other rules and stuff. So what do? They overcompensate. Now they're just jumping in the portal left and right like NFL free agency, and they're getting paid big money deals. They're getting, shoe deals. Quinn Ewers is like on our TV all the time with this lawyer, here
With
in
the
Austin.
lawyer.
Yeah, there's like some lawyer like that Fred Loya or whatever. He's always on there.
You know, they run those ads out of San Francisco too. Like, we're the official attorneys for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Zerata or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Ewers is on there. He's just a college quarterback, but he's gonna end up somewhere else next year, and I think Arch Manning will be the guy. And I think with Arch Manning, we're gonna win it all. I really did not think we'd even get this far. I knew we'd win the first two, but I thought whoever we play in the third game was going to stop us, and they did. I mean, obviously, I haven't even looked, but I know that's what happened.
I just got the alert.
Texas laws, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
14-28.
28-14, yeah.
Yeah.
So Texas loses, and they were on the verge of scoring, it looked like, and then Ohio State must have fumbled or something. Ohio State or something happened. I don't know. I didn't see it, but anyway, it was about to be tied up, and instead they lost by 2 touchdowns.
Oof.
I knew they weren't gonna win it, but I knew it wasn't gonna be no blowout like Oregon and that other stupid school that got the hell beat out of them. Tennessee. I mean, whoever they are, they're all. I don't like any of them. I hate all the college teams, all of them, except for
Come on.
I hate them all. I don't like any of them but Texas. That's it. I don't like any of them. But if a Texas team goes outside of the state and plays anybody, I don't give a crap who they're playing. I'm going for them. I hate A&M. I can tell you that right now, just because of the way that they're. It's like a cult. But I still root for them though if they're playing anybody but another Texas team. So that's just how I roll. I'm a very Texas-based guy. Like when it comes to my sports.
Clearly.
Yeah, but I like the Buccaneers, the Raiders, and football.
Oh,
That sucks. I
I
love
don't
the
like
Raiders.
Raiders.
The Raiders they're so bad.
The traitors.
I feel so bad for them, man. Now they're in Vegas, so it makes it much easier. I was like undercover rooting for them when they were in California. I was like, they're all right. As soon as they went to Las Vegas, I was like, I bought merchandise.
Oh, really?
There, yes.
As soon as they left the state of California.
That's right. Absolutely. I didn't own one piece of merchandise when they were with California, but when they left California, I was like, okay, cool.
Now
we
can do
got 'em.
business.
Exactly. We almost got them here in Texas. They were going to be in San Antonio.
Oh, really?
I would have been.
That would have been cool.
Ticket holder.
Oh, that would have been really
Their clothes
cool.
would have been the same as the Spurs.
Mm-hmm. Cowboys would have been mad at me because I'd have been like, "Bye, Felicia. Y'all done pissed me off too many times with that ET owner of yours." The Cowboys done made me mad.
Yeah, he needs to stop. He's not helping.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. I was just like,
He's a good man on the inside.
Yeah.
Deep down.
it's like you turn on the light. Where have you been? I've been sitting up all night waiting for you to win. Well, I don't know where. It was this thing happened with Green Bay. I don't know.
He's
I
gaslighting.
can't keep doing
right?
this, Cowboys. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this. I got to move on. So that's what I had to do, man. It was hard, man, but I knew I could make it on my own.
You're strong like that, Josh.
I'm a strong woman.
You
Strong
are.
woman.
Strong, independent woman.
Like
You got this.
You
You got this.
like on what's it called? South Park. Vice Principal Strong Woman.
Oh my gosh, I haven't watched South Park in so long. I need to start watching
South
it
Park
again.
is funny. The left goes
I love
crazy.
it.
My friend's wife, she hated South Park, and Clark.
Mhm.
He loved South Park, and she hated it because she was such a leftist. And I kept telling him, dude, that show is going to make you fight so much you're going to get a divorce.
Yeah.
Because he would just play it all the time. He's actually my brother's former brother-in-law. But yeah,
Your brother's former brother-in-law.
former brother-in-law. They are now. My brother is not with that woman. Thank God. Yeah, that was a horrible thing. That's why NCAA went after Jim Harbaugh. It's Michigan, Ohio thing, superior. Well, for whatever reason, Ohio State's going to go to the national championship, but they just couldn't beat Michigan. Like, come on, that's just I don't know. I really wanted them to beat Michigan this year. Come on.
Pay enough attention to know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I paid attention to it this year because it was the only escape I had from reality. It seemed like.
Well, you needed one. It seemed you needed a distraction.
I do. Being under attack by imbeciles, sometimes it's a lot of fun. It's funny, but then other times it just gets old.
Well, it's entertaining to a point.
Up to a point, yeah. Especially when they're like, we got you this time. We got witnesses and the evidence and the blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, let's see what happens, and then nothing ever happens. And
What did I
let's get excited. Let's go. And then there's nothing. It's just somebody walks in the room and farts and walks back out. I'm like, oh.
I mean, I read
time.
the chats that are posted on like PRT News and different things, and it's the
And
delusion.
we don't want to get into that because that's a whole nother cat
That's
litter
a whole other
box.
tangent.
Yeah. Folks, so the giveaway, don't forget to, if you have won in the last 2 weeks, our email got hacked. Okay, so we closed the gap pretty quick, but we don't know what all could have been done, what wasn't done. We have people that work on that kind of thing. We have a guy who's really good, and he took care of it real quick. But some of our stuff got deleted.
What?
Yeah, our email got hacked.
Oh no!
When was it? Last Friday, Monday?
Yeah.
Last Monday. On Monday, our email got hacked, and so we got back in pretty quick. But they destroyed some things. They got in there and they made a mess. So we've strengthened it, double strengthened it, and whatever, and got it. I didn't think it could be done, honestly, but
Well,
yeah.
I'm not shocked. Unfortunately,
No.
I wish I could be like, oh, clutch my pearls, but I can't. I can't.
You got attacked. Your email was hacked.
What?
Holy crap! But yeah, that's what happened. So, so just so you know, if your name is in green and you're chosen, send us your address and your shirt size and your full name, okay? So that we can mail you out what you want. And so to get in green, you have to become a member. That's $5, real simple, and it's cheap. And just do it. The other thing I got to tell you, if you've won in the last 3 shows, send us your email again. Please redo it because I think we got everybody's, but I'm not 100% because some things got dumped.
Oh, you're gonna get flooded.
Yeah, what these people don't get though is that as soon as stuff hits the email, and Anthony, you can attest to this, I move it into a folder real quick.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to do before we get started with Monica, and we're gonna talk about some stuff. I have a guy.
You got a guy?
Is about as close as you're like, okay. He's about as close as I can get to having someone who's willing to come on. I hope he's willing. I think he is. He sent me a picture
Of what?
of him changing into what could be something, a monster. I don't know what it is. Okay. But what he's saying and what he's talking about, he's in no offense to you, Guy, okay, the person that sent me this, but you're a very odd looking person. Like he's a very odd looking guy anyway. And I've seen people that look like him that look, one of them works out at our gym.
I gotta see.
I made a joke about it to Anthony. I said, that guy might be a werewolf because he just, what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
The big, tall guy with the hair.
Yeah.
All right. And he is super incredibly strong. I've watched this guy when he goes to lift. He may be the only person in the gym that rivals me, and I'm not even joking. That's not a joke. I'm not making that up. I'm very, very
Okay.
unnaturally strong.
Got high Neanderthal DNA markers.
Might. But this guy's got a big, kind of a squared looking head, kind of like the guy that sent me the video.
I'm hearing Frankenstein.
Well, the guy tells me that he's an actual werewolf. Now,
Okay.
I've been told this a few times about people, and it never really panned out. But there are people who are practicing lycanthropy who have in the past, and they say a lot of things that check out. And they're older people that have they have nothing to gain by it.
Sure.
There's nothing to gain by it at all. I mean, if they wanted to come out in the spotlight and be like, hey, I'm aware, that'd be different, but they're not. They're not trying to. They're just telling me this is what I used to do. I belong to a cult.
Okay.
We practice lycanthropy and vampirism, and you had a choice.
Huh.
But that is a weird thing. But I have a picture he sent me that I think is quite odd.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't
That'd
think
be
he's listening to
interesting.
the show right now because he works until like 11 o'clock. But I think that like I said, he's not the first one, but I'm hoping that he'll come on and he'll talk. And whether you believe him or don't believe him, he's real soft spoken. He's mild mannered. He's not like out there like talking like a goofy whatever. He's not. He sent me voicemails.
Sure.
What do you call it when they send you a voice?
Voice message.
Voice message.
Mm.
In the past, when I've had people tell us this, they say some really dumb things that just kind of immediately shut you down. You're just like, yeah, I don't believe you. And, it's just, this guy seems different. He seems like one of the other people that had reached out to me before about being in the cult.
Is
and
it
those people have kind of, what's up?
is it the cult with the gosh, what was it? It was something that got into like a black goo.
The goo,
The other,
the black goo, the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are people who can be born that way because they're of the union of these beings. And that's what this guy is claiming he is. He was born this way.
Okay.
And give me an example of something that happened to him at work. Now I talked to Eve recently, and she's a former witch, proclaimed witch, but not in the way that you would think of as a witch. They have a very certain set of rules because it was a vampiric thing. And I gave her this guy's story, and I said, "What do you think?" And she's like, "It's possible." She's like, "Because there are people." She herself was almost the product of that. She was almost the unholy union of.
Oh.
Yeah. But she said 90% of them are born cursed, that when they're born like that, and they're evil. Their soul is completely dark from birth. But occasionally they can flip, which she talks about flipping polarities. Like they can flip.
Okay.
You become very powerful spiritually, but then you check out from being evil because for whatever reason. Now, the next episode we're going to drop on Tuesday, we think it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. We don't know yet, whatever time permits. But it's going to come out. It's about angels and people who have absolutely, in my opinion, been saved by beings of light.
I love hearing those stories.
Well, we got a million of
It's
them.
going to be a good episode.
And Anthony was like, because Nellie was like, we should do one about angels. We should do one about angels. And I was like, women and them, they're soft, wanting positivity. We're not here for that. No, I'm joking. But Nellie's like, what's wrong with that? No, but I decided to give in, and I said, well, let me see what I have. And I had no idea like how many of those stories we really had. Anthony had said, he goes, we got quite a few of them. They're probably in those folders. And then when I went and started looking, and then we forgot to tell on that episode, your cousin, not your cousin, your brother-in-law's cousin, the story that he gave us. Now, he died.
No.
And last Easter, was it last Easter or the Easter before?
No, I think it was the Easter before.
He gave us an incredible story of being saved by beings of light.
Oh.
So I took his information and I talked to him and I put it in a folder and I just forgot about it. It was like, well, there it is. And so I went in there and I found his story, and I found like a bunch of other stories from people who have been saved. Speaking of the gym, there was one in there about a guy he almost died in the gym. Well, he did die. And something jumped on him that looked like this is weird. It was like a dog with a small head, as he claimed. It was like a dog-like thing, but the head was just like this small, like, I don't know. It was weird, like a ball. And it was trying to go into his body, and it was burrowing into his body, and he was floating above it, and he sees this like ball of light. It becomes like this hand that just kind of grabs that being and just yanks it off of his body, floats up, and then talks to him, not with words, but tells him, to your body.
Wow.
So he was saved by a being of light. He was being crushed to death on his throat. He should have been dead. She should have died, but it didn't kill him. Working out without a spotter, folks, with really heavy weight is very dangerous.
Very dangerous, yeah.
And he did it, and he was taking all kinds of not steroids, but taking all those pre-workout, all
those
that
stimulants,
horrible stuff.
Oh,
so he goes to the hospital, and his blood pressure is really bad, and he has a stroke. And then he manages to live through all of that. And you're like, wow, dude. And the whole time he thinks it was because God spared him. And so who knows? Who knows?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I was talking to Garitano. Could he pop on?
Sure. I have no problem with Garitano. Are we using Garitano to distract from your stuff?
No.
Because
I
if you're
told him I was
using
on with
him
you.
to distract because you got nothing to say, then get out of here.
Oh, I just
We'll put Chris on and we'll let him talk.
Well, Chris is way more interesting anyway.
I was planning on bringing on him at some point in the next couple of weeks anyway. Next week, I got Brian Bowden coming on, and then on Friday, and then the week after that's Nick Valenti. Week after that is Jason Bland, and then I got Joe Breezy. And I was hoping to get Garitano on too real soon before he drops his stuff.
Oh, A Haunting We Will Go.
Yes. So
no, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to that.
You're
I don't keep
so
up
hard
with a
on
lot
that.
of people's stuff, but I keep up with his. So we sent him a link. He can jump on.
Sweet.
So as far as you go, now we did the show. I was going to say we did Lechusa the show. No, we did the show about Lechusa. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, I don't know. You probably didn't listen to the show. It just came out like on Wednesday. But what are your thoughts on the creature?
Well, I believe in Lechusa, actually. I do. My grandfather was chased by one here in Texas when he was a young man. And I think it was here in Texas. My mom would tell me the story fairly often, where he was walking back from a dance or something, down a dirt road coming home. And it started out as a ball of light. And it was following him through the trees. And then turned into Lechusa, right? The owl woman. And she hung out at the house and he got really sick for a while. This is my mom's story. And I'm not sure, to be honest with you, I can't remember how he got well, but they had to call somebody in to do, prayers and everything to drive off the Lechusa. And so I believe it. I believe it.
My question, and I posed this on that, it was an hour-long pre-record. My question was, why do so many people, females that practice the dark arts, why do they choose that form?
I don't know. I don't know why they would choose that form. I mean, if it's, do you really feel that there's that many? I don't feel like there's a ton.
Well, okay. I guess because my mother's heritage is Hispanic.
Yeah.
And so I believe that and then my native blood. I mean, there's there is a lot of that goes around.
There's a lot of shape shifting if you choose to go down that path.
Yeah.
Right. Especially native, right? It's the southern native tribes. And but with Lechusa, I mean, I don't know that it's something that happens a ton. I just when you're a bruja, you can do a lot of stuff, and it just depends on which path you're going down. I guess if you feel particularly nasty, you want to pull the life force out of people. You want to have that kind of power. I suppose that's an attractive thing.
I just know that in my life, I have never seen one. Maybe heard one because at my uncle's farm, at the ranch I live at now, we hear some weird stuff. And one of the guys that works as a mechanic down the road, he says that he believes it. He thinks that's what it is. He told my cousins that. Well, I don't know about that. What I do know is that at my uncle's ranch, when I was a kid, I was a young teenager, like 13, 14, whatever, I babysat my little turd cousins and their little friends party. And our parents are like, we're going to go do some, whatever it was, and take care of these kids. They're only 5 boys. You can handle it. And one of them kept wandering down to the pond that they had down behind their house. I mean, he's a good swimmer, but it was just, I'm counting. I'm like, there's 4 boys. Where are the rest of them at? And I am only a few years older than these kids. I'm old enough to kick all their asses, but they're bad. Okay. And so I had to tell my one cousin, watch these boys while I go and find the other one. And I run. He was the older one, a little bit below me, a few years, And so I found him. He was only like 6 or 7. And he was down by the pond. And he was like, listen to this noise. And it sounded like how they described the lechuza. And I said, we need to go.
Now.
And I grabbed him. I've told this on the show before. And we all took off back up to the main house. That was a creepy enough for me. But, my cousin later on in life, Trey,
Mm-hmm.
it was him and his brother. Trey actually had a lechuza encounter. And I've never been able to get him to come back on and do it because he's gone. He went up to work in North Dakota. He's a farmer by trade, and he goes and he works different places, and he'll be gone. And he's worked on different types of farms, smaller. He worked on a smaller hog farm for a while. He wasn't real happy with that job, and then he punched cattle for a while. No, but then he farms too. Like he drives tractors, combines, things like that. Because my uncle did, my great uncle did. And so the ranch that we're on now, there's people that say that it's haunted. There's a lot of weird stuff. Like the other day, I saw something move by my window, and everybody's telling me they're seeing stuff. I hadn't seen anything yet. And then, and I'm like, okay. And then I was kept working on the computer trying to do my book. Then I see it again, and I'm like, okay, I know I saw that. And the dogs were going crazy. And my one dog in particular, she's real, like, she goes nuts. And so I went out the back and I looked, and there's nothing there. And then a little bit later, and Anthony talked about this on the show, he heard something bang against the house. There's Chris. What's up, man?
Hello.
There he is.
What's going on, brother? So let me finish this real quick. Chris Garitano, everybody. But so we ended up talking about it later on, and we compared notes, and we were like, what could that be? I mean, is that, could it be a ghost or whatever? But it was a large, shadowy thing.
Right.
And the way it moved by the window was so. Are you trying to make the ghost? What is that thing you made with the what is the ghost? What's it called?
I mean, it's an old effect that was done. It's an illusion called a Pepper's Ghost.
Pepper's Ghost. That's
Yeah.
right. Pepperidge Farm remembers, except I didn't. Pepperidge Farm did. I can tell you that.
So I sent Wolf a text the other night regarding what I think the future of these live streams are. I went into an app in a Metavisor VR called Big Screen. Now, Big Screen is like a movie theater. You can go in and watch with all people around the world different movies all night long, 24/7.
Cool.
Or you can go into a bar setting, a bowling alley setting, a lounge setting. There's a whole variety. I went into a boardroom. This guy, Jose, calls him Jose 666. That's his name. But he hovers above the table talking about different religion, paranormal, occultism, and having a pretty mature conversation about all of the above, which I could see Wolf doing one of these things in there. You should try it, I think. Just go in and sit in some of these conversations. I think you're going to find it amazing because once you have the VR visor on your head, you're actually in there. I mean, you're 360 degrees up and down all over the place. You are there. You're there speaking to these people. It's bizarre, and it's the future of all of this stuff. I think all of these live streams and things like that will be discussions in VR, and there is a way to monetize it. Because it's a lot of hard work putting all this stuff together. But I think for now might be a great annex for you to try, even just to go in and listen. Because I know you're going to be tempted to go into one of these things and just kind of tear into these people. But I think in the beginning, go in and just check it out, just to feel it out.
Can his head float above them all like the great and powerful Oz?
You can, yeah. I was talking to people. Oh, it was so weird. I was in the lobby of Big Screen last night and just talking because I have some ideas for a VR thing and I'm just picking people's brains. And so there was a couple in there that met and they're floating above me. And they're just hanging out, explaining to me that they met in this world and then they met in real life and got married. I'm like, wow, this is so bizarre.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much like Red Player One at this moment. You know, it's close to it. Not exactly The Matrix, but Ready Player One for sure.
Well, me and Nellie met through this, you know, because I interviewed her for her Dogman encounter. And we were just supposed to interview for the Dogman encounter. And we started talking, and I'll never forget, it was Valentine's. And we talked for like 8 hours, which I don't think I've ever done that with anybody.
Oh, wow.
Just talk for 8 hours straight. And I looked down and I'm like, holy crap, it's been 8 hours. And then we started talking every day until she came to visit. And then I basically held her hostage for a couple of months until she
wouldn't
got
let her
used to being
leave.
Stockholm.
Took her
yeah,
plane
Stockholm
tickets
syndrome.
away.
Yeah. Once she finally said, okay, I won't, you know.
He Harley Quinned her.
Yeah. Then I decided I would let her out for short walks to the mailbox. I keep an eye on her, you know.
Still keep her on the leash.
Yeah.
One of those leashes that parents have for their kids.
No, but ultimately she ended up at the airport, and I was at the gym, and a buddy of mine that worked, he's a gym rat, you know, and I've known him for years. He tells me, he says, what are you doing here, brother? He's a black dude, man. He's just like, he's like, you love this girl? I said, yeah. He goes, then why are you working out with us? He told me, he says, go get her. I said, she's at the airport. She's already, you know, he goes, he's like, you can't afford another ticket? If she decides to leave, what are you doing? And I thought about it, and I was like doing tricep pull downs. I'll never forget. I just let go, and I was like, "You're right." And I just jumped. I just took my gloves off, ran. I jumped in the truck, and I called her, and she answered, and she was about to board. And I said, "Don't get on that plane, please. Don't get on that plane." She's like, "What are we doing?" I said, "Stay here, please." And so she's like, "Really?" I said, "Yes." She goes, she's kind of thinking about it, and she's like, "Okay, but I really need to get my stuff." And I'm like, "Well, we'll get it." So then we waited until like October, and we drove all the way out there. And on the way back, we encountered a forest fire that we had to drive through. Remember that, Anthony?
Yeah.
And then the temperature plummeted to below freezing, and we run into sleet, you know, in their Flagstaff. And I was like, this is crazy. Yeah. Late October. And then we come back just in time for the Astros to win the World Series, but I was happy. And been with her ever since. And it was like a movie. I mean, I can't tell. She was waiting there for me, and she gets in the truck, and she's like, "What are we doing?" I said, "I don't know. Stay with me. Let's make it work.
Sweet.
I love you, you know." And she was like, "I love you too." And then,
and all the girls in chat are like, more.
yeah. And the evil people are like, "How can we undo this?"
Yeah.
That's Stockholm syndrome she's got. That's not love.
No attention. How can we undo this?
Yeah, they're doing this with their mustache. See, we got to stop this man. Huh? He's happy, huh?
Don't give them any power.
Yeah, don't.
Acknowledge.
That's all you can do. I mean, we have a PRT news that people can go look. I don't need to do whatever. I mean, on this channel here, this show, no names, nothing. I'm not giving them a breadcrumb. I just like to laugh at them because at this point it's become it's comical. It's like it's so bad. But if these people took that energy, they could go and they could write for sitcoms. Some of the jokes and stuff, they could go and write. Just some of the crap they make up.
Negativity is the killer of creativity. It truly is.
They get pretty creative. Let me tell you.
Well, they'd be great authors. Make up some fictional books.
Yeah, go become the next Stephen King. I mean, with the crap they come up with.
Oh, well, that would require you to be extremely articulate, creative, and imaginative.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely imaginative, but they're not creative. They don't have the others that are going whatever. So
articulate.
You drink this stuff that Nelly makes you drink.
But so bizarre in the VR world, really. I really think you should explore it. You know, the Meta Quest 3, I think SR visors are pretty affordable right now. They're under $300 or just about.
Oh, that is affordable.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Is it just like a standalone unit, or you have to?
Yeah, let me go get it. I'll show you.
It's a write-off.
I'm thinking they're all like $4,000-$5,000.
Yeah, I was thinking like, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
James Bobby says, "What's in your drink?" Okay, so it's beet juice, obviously, ginger, apple cider vinegar, celery seed.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, and then there's dang, where's Nellie at? Nellie could tell you.
So yeah, here it is. Look, that's it. $300. It's amazing. I can't even. It's just to sit here and explain. It's not going to do it any justice.
So put it on and then do stuff and pretend like we're not there, and let's just see what happens with it.
So I'll tell you what's going on. I mean, I wish I could mirror it to show you what's happening. I think there's a way to do it. I'm not that savvy with these things yet. Okay, I can see you right now.
Okay.
So I have my menus up above because there's AR in these now. It's not just VR, so it's
All
double.
right.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm looking above here, and let's say it's again like it's not taking off the way it should because people don't realize how amazing it is. You have to go in there to see it. So I have options right now. I have 3 menus in front of me, one of which is offering all the different apps and universes. Now there's a ton of free stuff you can do in here, and that's like amazing games where you're literally flying a spaceship through the cosmos and you're blowing other spaceships away or whatever.
That's cool.
All of those are in like a Meta Horizon world game. But what I was talking about was big screen, and in there you can go in there and sit inside any of those environments. Like I was in a bar the other night just hanging and talking about religion with these people. Then I went into the boardroom and where this guy Jose was, and he was having the kind of conversations that you have. But I can see you in this realm, Wolf, and having, just even sitting in on their conversations and then starting a paranormal roundtable in there. I think you'd be on the cutting edge if you did it, for sure. Like I talked to people in big screen last night, and I will screen A Haunting We Will Go. They were all excited about it. They were like, oh, let's do it. We'll promote to all the other people around here. And I'm like, cool. Because you can go in the lobby and just speak to people from around the world at any time of the day. So, yeah, I mean, I can just access any of these worlds in there right now. Whole variety of games. I can go play pinball in an arcade. I can do it. And you're actually there doing it. It's not 2D. It's all around you. You can, depending on the space, like my house is pretty big. So if I go all the way down the hall, out past the living room area, into the dining room area, it's enormous. And I can create my boundaries where I can actually walk around in these places. But if you're sitting and if you're stationary, you can use this toggle here on the controller and just move forward. So you have to try it. Just order it from Amazon. If you don't like it, you could return it in 30 days.
I think I will be
Okay.
ordering
That
that.
sounds really
I'll
cool.
take your advice, and then when it sucks, I'll be like, Garitano told me to do this.
We're going to meet in there, and you can record it and actually upload it to your channel to show
That's cool.
your audience the experience that we had in VR. So I'd say get it, and then next week we can meet in big screen and go into some of these places. You can record it. You can actually hit record while you're in there, and then export it and then upload it to YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, people have a lot of fun with those. I've seen like a lot of recordings of people like, because you have like your own avatar in there,
Right.
And you're interacting with everyone else's.
Right. Some guy told me I looked like Elvis last night because I was wearing a leather jacket and I had the sideburns and everything. It's hilarious. So we should all get it and get in there. And since the audience is hearing us talk about it right now, it's going to be great to see, to show them the experience we had in there. And then maybe, more people will get these things.
Yeah,
I don't get any money from Meta, so.
I want to do a movie watch with those. I think that'd be so fun. You and I talked about that before.
Yeah, well, we can
Yeah, you
all
can do a
get
lot with
into a
it.
drive-in together. We can go into any theater setting, and we can watch movies. We could watch examples on YouTube. I mean, you have access to so much in there that down the road, I am seriously considering. I'm talking to some people right now, and maybe an improvement upon what big screen is doing specifically for movie makers, or people that just love movies,
Mm-hmm.
But the
Yeah,
discussion
something about like the VR aspect of it makes it. I don't know. It makes it kind of more personal. Like I've noticed that, watching videos of people interact on like in these different environments, these VR environments, it's a lot more like socially open. I don't know how to explain it. Like it's not the same as just like playing a game on a screen and being in the same spot as someone. It's like with VR, your avatar is there and it's interacting with theirs.
Right, you're there. You actually feel like you're somewhere else. It's odd. Once you get out of it, it takes a few minutes to kind of like, wow, I was just somewhere. Like last night, these people in big screen, they were showing me things and they were like, all right, stand over here and we're going to take you up through the roof into the atmosphere so you can see the moon. So they flew me up into the room. I mean, like it doesn't, talking about it doesn't no justice. We should just all meet in there. It's definitely the future of all of this. And I believe one of the settings is we can get together in a bar and just hang out and talk like you feel like you're in a bar because you can play pool and darts while we're having the conversation, or you could just hang out at one of the tables. Mm-hmm. The other thing is a talk show setting. So you can have like Anthony Wolf, like everybody just sitting up on the panel talking, and then audience members can sit in the audience like you're literally in a talk show studio. It's
so cool.
So I'm going to shut this down now.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people would, like a lot of our audience who might not otherwise have ever been into that kind of thing, like they might follow us to there just, just for the show. Because I mean, like the one thing is that I think the VR headsets that they are the future, but like there's this kind of like I don't know, like not stigma, but like mysticism, not mysticism. I don't know, like confusion around them, where people think misconception. I don't know, but where people think that like, oh, I'll never figure that out. Oh, that's newfangled, fancy, whatever. So there's like this kind of artificial barrier to entry there, but they get like easier and easier every generation to use.
It's so user friendly.
Yeah,
you're gonna love it. I can't wait to meet you guys in there and just hang out and look through what the possibilities are. Because let's say, all right, you have maybe just for your subscriber, your special subscriber membership, they can't get in the room you start unless you give them a code. So you could always keep it exclusive. Like there's no direct way to monetize in big screen, but then you can make that code available if you wanted to monetize the room. So that option is always there. But I would say have a few gatherings for free first, and even a following in there, because there's a whole, like all the users in big screen and all the users in meta worlds are of their own way. They do it every day, every night. One guy told me, he said, the longest I was in here was almost 24 hours. Like,
wow.
Yeah, like what did you do? Did you go to work with the helmet on?
I don't know about all that.
Maybe he was off and he just chose his whole day off to just be stuck in the VR world.
Yeah, and there's so many places. I mean, there's live concerts, basketball games. Like you could sit courtside at the game. I was doing that last night, talking to people. It's amazing. It's just so crazy. So.
You've been talking to me about this for a while, though.
Yeah.
We talked about this months.
Chris is always looking forward.
Yeah, you're always in the future. Always in the future. Never your mind on where you are. That's Chris.
Star Wars.
So, yeah, it's Anakin right there, folks. One day he's going to be like,
well, I hope not. Well, all right, here's the other thing. Check this out. There is a Star Wars game in here. The greatest thing you'll ever do is train in the dojo with a lightsaber and fighting stormtroopers, and you actually have telekinesis in there, so you can like
my god,
hey,
now I really want to do it.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I want to kill the rebels though.
Yeah, I want to be Vader though. I don't want to be
can you just like mind choke people?
It's off the wall. Explaining it doesn't do it justice, and that's why there haven't been enough people that actually try it, and then you're like, oh my god, I didn't know this existed. I thought this was
I really just thought that the goggles cost like $4,500.
$300, everything's contained, and I think it comes with a really awesome Batman game, a VR game where you're Batman.
Yeah, there's some really high-end sets that can get really expensive, but they price them at like really
okay, so if you have 500 to drop, get the one with the pancake, what they call pancake lenses. The $300 one has Fresnel lenses. They're great, but the pancake lenses are, I think, 30 to 40% more resolution and field of view, which is just the 8 at the moment. And this is free roam. I mean, it scans your house. So it can scan your house for AR, alternate reality, and all these things are popping up. Like I could see you before with this on, and all my screens were up. So
So let me ask you this: what happens to all of us when this becomes the norm, and now you have demons in some people's houses? Is that going to change how we see them? Are we going to be able to see them? I mean,
yeah, I had an interesting experience with it one night because, well, it was the previous version of this where things were a little more blown out through the AR system, and I could have sworn I saw something anomalous in a corner. So I don't know. I wonder, could there be a ghost in the machine? And I think there's going to be programmers that do that. There are already hecklers that come in, but the coolest thing is, let's say you're in big screen and in your room, and a few hecklers pop in. You can zap them and they can never come back again. You could be like, all right, you're out, see ya, and then they never have access to you again.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So it's a good function, just in case, because you get them in your chat rooms anyway, right?
yeah.
Sure.
So in this case, they'll never be able to access you again. And I guess the security's tighter because it's not like they're going to go get another helmet, they can't get you anymore.
Well, I mean, the good thing about our moderators, we have a good set of moderators, and so they can't really get into us. They'll say one thing and then they're gone.
Right.
But there's one person in particular who makes like thousands of these fake profiles, and that's not my words. That's from other people who've dealt with them. They say that. I don't know I know it's at least hundreds, but I don't know if it's thousands. I've had other people say they believe it's thousands, but. And I don't think it was him that hacked us because I don't think he's smart enough, but somebody else did. And they did some weird stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but I was like, this is weird. It was a weird breach. It was like they were just snooping. But I'm so on top of that. Every day I'm taking the stuff out and putting it into folders. So they probably didn't manage to get much. But then all of a sudden, this other person started reaching out to all these different people's emails, addresses that they had gotten from who had given me stories. Right. And they were like, did you send me this? Did you send me this? I'm like, no. That's how I found out that we had, I didn't know because they were smart. They just sat there kind of like observing. They didn't just immediately do a bunch of crap. And it wasn't until they started reaching out to people pretending to be me, saying things that people knew I wouldn't say, and asking questions about the conversations that we had that I should have already known the answers to. Mm-hmm. And one really observant young lady messaged me and says, this doesn't seem right. So she texted me. So I got on the computer and I told Anthony, I said, we've been hacked. There's somebody in there. But I don't think the people I think this was something else. I think it was somebody else doing something. I don't know. It's weird. I've had a lot of people tell me recently that they've been hacked.
The great thing is you can make the rooms by invite only. Like your gatherings could be invite only.
That would be a good idea for the Patreon.
That's what I'm saying. And you can give them the code exclusively on the Patreon. Like they won't be able to get your room code unless you give it to them. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they go into the big screen app and they have their own lobby. And then it says access another room. So you just type in the code and then boom, you're zapped right into it.
Yeah, that would be, because there's subjects that I want to get into that I'd rather just have it more tightened up where it's not as, I'm against putting anything behind a paywall. I've been saying that for a long time, but there needs to be some parameters because some things people aren't going to want to know. And I think that some things people don't need to know. There's other people that are more into that. My friends in the UFO community in particular, they're a lot more guarded. They don't want to just come out and open forum and just say a bunch of stuff, but they would like to be able to pick and choose the audience. And I was like, with one in particular, and I told him, I said, I really can't do that because I'm not a person that wants to put anything behind a paywall. And he was like, well, maybe you should. And I said, yeah, a lot of people say that, but then when you do that, you're going back on your word, which I said I would never do. And so
it could be Patreon members only could only access the VR.
That would be the thing, but I don't want to tell stories in there of people's encounters that they don't get to hear, the regular people, because times are tough, and money's tight, and January's always bad. I mean, look, it's right after Christmas. We're in here. We've gone for an hour and 22 minutes. We've only had 2 donations, whereas typical month, last January was like that too. But typically you'd have 5 or 6 at least. And since this administration's been in there, we've seen a steady decline in monetary gain. Just it's like this.
Right.
Still going up with subs, still going up with views. Still on Sundays we get 750 people in the chat, but you don't get the donations, and that's simply because I believe people are broke. They just don't have it, and and I understand it. I'm broke as shit right now too. Why do you think I'm wearing my smaller gold chains today? I'm joking. Like today, I'm like, hey man, the other ones are in the pawn shop.
I'm only wearing 2 today.
I found a stray cat. I'm going to train it and sell it, and hopefully I can get my jewelry back.
Well, number one, that could be a really cool perk for them to go live into the room if they have a VR visor, and that's part of your Patreon. And the second part could be that you can record parts of the sessions and put them up on YouTube, and just as an incentive, or say, hey, if you guys ever want to attend while we're actually there, it's quite an experience.
Yeah.
And you could do it in a bar setting, or the boardroom, or a theater, or a drive-in, wherever. I mean, like the boardroom is kind of neat because this guy was like, it was so strange. He was playing this fire, like a fireplace. So it was crackling while he was sitting there telling stories to everybody, hovering over the table. It's just so weird.
I've got to experience this.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Now that we know it's not $1 million, I was like,
right?
too expensive for me. I can't be buying that crap right now. I got bills to pay.
Yeah, I don't even have the one with the pancake lenses. I have the Fresnel lenses, and they're fantastic. But the pancake lenses are the ultimate view. So it's a couple of $100 more, but for $300 to sample it now, and then maybe get the infinitely better one in 2 years from now.
Right. And I'm sure they'll have upgraded by then too.
Yeah. And this is a huge upgrade from the last one I had. So
what do you think about this, Monica? Are you going to start incorporating that into some of the work you do in your show?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think because, I recently got monetized, and YouTube is really harassing me to start memberships. Yeah. And I don't see the point in starting a membership if I'm not going to do anything that's exclusive for members, right? If I don't have anything to offer members.
That's what I do.
And if I were able to incorporate these chat rooms into like a members only thing, I think that would be worth it. I mean, if somebody's going to pay money to be a member of my channel, I want to give them something interesting. And I think that would definitely be something interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you can play anything you want, because every single room has a screen, so you can pull up anything you want on those screens and discuss, videos of anomalies, movies,
right?
Maybe.
And we could see each other. I mean, or the avatars at least. I think that's.
Yeah, you're literally sitting next to each other. It's awesome, and we can look in each other's cartoon eyes. It really is worth the experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sold. I'm gonna go buy some.
Do it.
Give it too. I'm gonna at least try it and check it out. See what we can do with this.
Yeah, if you want to have a laugh, do yourself a favor. Go on YouTube and just type in like VR chat and then the word funny or something. There's tons of recordings of people playing around in these VR chat rooms. Just have
really? I'll check that out.
But it still doesn't give you you have to be there to really fully experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can legally try it out for a little bit less than 30 days. I would give you some time to send it back if you hated it, but I know you're not going to hate it. So
I'd rather try it out illegally. Thank you.
Make sure you get the MetaQuest, at least the MetaQuest 3S, nothing beneath that. The
3S and above,
or the 3, which has the pancake lenses. This one is the one with the Fresnel lenses, and it's fantastic. So, and this is the $300 one.
So, what are your thoughts on like how far along are you with your release?
Very close. Very close. Listen, I'm a different type of person. If you see people just spitting these things out, that's fine. That's their choice. I'm not making something like that. I'm making something that in 30 years from now, 40 years from now, someone's going to be watching again. Okay. And it requires a lot of attention to detail. It's not just docu-scenes. It's something very deep and profound and existential to me. I wanted to say something. It means something to me. It's personal. And it took some extra time. And also there were some story things that took time. I had an experience at a cemetery that I really needed to find a woman. Took time to find her. Took time for her to respond to me, and that was almost an extra year between that and another story about a woman who, in the early 70s, took a skull from an Indian burial mound that was being bulldozed into a river. And she's had that in her possession, and now she wants it returned officially, and it's complicated. But all of that's in the movie too. So it's epic. It's 2 hours, man, and it's a monster. And it's like I wanted it. It's launching my whole new series too, because there's other ones I've been shooting, and it means the world to me. So I took some extra time with it and to make it perfect. And I'm almost there. I mean, I think maybe 3 months left in the making, and then it's all about, all right, setting it sail perfectly, getting it out there the right way. And it'll be at paranormal conventions and film festivals, and then it'll have its streaming release and physical media release after, and all this year for sure.
I had somebody reach out to us. We were talking about the Mountain of Fear. Well, there's different names for it. Some people call it the Mountain of Death. Now it's in Russia.
Right.
Because during the Winter War between Russia and the Soviet Union, before Germany invaded, well, not Germany and 12 allies, but they invaded the Soviet Union. There was a war between the Finnish and the Russians and the Soviets. Yes, please. My wife's offering me a drink, but my brothers drank all of my drinks in there. So he came over here and he's like, "Yeah, I crashed out at the office. Guess what? I ate up all the food and there's no drinks." Okay, thank you for that. He's got quite the appetite, but he's not. It's not cold. It's not cold, baby. I don't want to drink it though. Leave it here for the other guys. They use this as a way station. We have 3 little spots that we have a pretty cool setup down here. I would never leave because we have like friends that let us use their place in different parts of the city. So wherever we're at, any part of the city, we have a spot that we can go. We have the codes to get into there and go use the restrooms and stuff.
Oh, that's good.
And we have 98 accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have the access to go swimming at like, I think 46 different places.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to go to a swimming pool or a hot tub, and we have permission from the management. So it's like, if you want to go, they're like, here's the code, blah, blah, blah. So, but I have actual places where we can go and use nice, clean restrooms. You don't have to share the public with. And I shout out to Phil, one of my friends who lets us do that. And another female that works for us. She has a place. She's never even there. She's staying with her boyfriend, so she lets us use it, and it's pretty convenient. But this is kind of a way station too, because this is the office, that's the break room, that's the storeroom, and then this is the studio. And it's about 1,000 square foot. And so the guys come in here, and you can tell when they've been here because all of my snacks and my drinks are gone. And I'm like, well, did you stop there when you were on patrol? Oh, well, yeah, I used the restroom, and then you drank up and ate everything like an Insecticon. Yes, thank you. That's what they do. It's pretty cool. We got a pretty cool life, I got to say. We have a ranch now, and we have a house in Cedar Park, and it's nice. I like the way that our life is. It just sucks because there's so much more that we could be doing, and insurance rates are out of control.
Yeah.
They just raised the rates again on our company. And I'm going like, how are we supposed to stay in business much longer if we keep doing this? Right. And it's not just for us, it's everybody, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I have a damn good insurance agent. A guy named Mike Sealer. He's a good guy. And he's a big a professional bull riding guy. And he has a place that he does the bull riding events out in Bell County. And he gives us a great deal. But he's gone as low as he can. And it's like, even with that, it's like it's getting harder and harder. These insurance companies have to be put in check. It's in some form or another. Somebody has to say, hey, now I don't recommend them going and doing the Mangione thing or whatever. But I mean, they need to be brought to heel because something's good grief, man.
There's some odd psyop stuff going on with that one. That's just another way to condition people to think that's how you solve the problem. I don't know if that's not coming from any good place.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's coming from an understandable place.
Yeah.
Right. They knew we would relate to that.
Yeah.
And so if it was orchestrated, they knew damn well we were going to be like, I understand, but hold on, because you got to think about the deep threads of your psyche that it's affecting. Like, okay, well, I approve of that. What else do we approve of? I dislike this person. Kill him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the downside, because who gets to be judge, juror, and say who is good and who is bad? The bad person is the one that is being judged by a mob, of people, or that's being judged by the system.
Right.
The system in place says we don't like you. I explained that, that like Julius Caesar, one of the things, and not to get into a history lesson, but the system that was in place, they forced him to become the emperor. I'm not joking. Like, he was part of the triumvirate, and when he was recalled to Rome, his legions, he was told to leave his legions across the Rubicon, because once you crossed into Italy, then you were officially in Roman territory. And if you're in Latin territory, you leave your legions behind. They were there to fight the Gauls and, whoever else, not Roman soldiers. But he knew that he was going to be taken to the Senate, tried, put in jail for who knows how long, then given a kangaroo court and probably executed after he made them all rich. So he talked to Mark Antony, his right-hand guy, his protege, and Mark Antony was like always okay with a fight. And he was like, let's go to Rome and kick their ass and let's take over. And why not? Who's going to stop us? Well, it had happened before with Sulla. And so nobody wanted a repeat of what had happened before, where this guy just decided to cut everyone's hands off and nail them to the door of the Senate, and this is what Sulla did. And so he was Rome's first true dictator.
Oh.
So everybody was like, we don't want a repeat of that. But he says they're not giving me a choice. And so he decided to cross the Rubicon with his legions. He sent a courier ahead and said, look, I'm only bringing one into the city. They returned and they said, you don't bring any or there's going to be a problem. Well, the problem with that is that they had 3 unseasoned legions there to protect Rome. These are boys. They've never fought. The guys he's with have been fighting these rowdy Gauls for 6 years, the Gallics. Do you think that those guys who've been fighting these people who will literally, one of their favorite methods of death is to tear your nose off, right, and force it down your throat? Okay. So these Romans who've been fighting those kind of people who like to paint themselves blue and spike their hair with animal dung and go crazy naked, whatever. Yeah. And then these Roman legions who've just been, training the Marius training or whatever. Yeah. Baloney. They're not going to fight those guys and win. So Caesar said, okay, well, I'm going to bring my legions and let's see what your legions can do. So Rome capitulated because obviously Pompey was not an idiot. And he was like, we can't fight his guys. They've been rampaging across France for 6 years. Do you think that these boys that we have that have never fought, that have just been training, now they've done the Marius training, but they're not going to face these guys. So in essence, they created that dictatorship. He said, you're leaving me no choice. And then he was foolish enough, though, and I tell him that he was foolish enough to trust that they weren't going to backstab him, and that he took them at their word that they were going to be okay. And he incorporated Gauls and Iberian Celts and Germanics and all kinds of Syrians and others that come and that were living in Rome as freemen to be a part of the Senate. The nobles hated this. They were absolutely xenophobic, and they were like, this is crazy. You can't let these people into the Senate and have a vote, and we're expanding the Senate and doing all this stuff. We have to have these certain families, these 12 families that have been in charge of Italy forever, going back to the Etruscans. And now this guy's upsetting the apple cart. So they told him, you can't bring your bodyguards into the Senate. And when he didn't do that one day, they set him up and they killed him.
Right.
So that's what happens. So it's whoever makes the rules decides who's good, who's bad.
Right.
So when Caesar was in charge, he said everybody should have a voice, which was correct. He was very much a benign dictator. And the Roman people, they appreciated the gifts of a benign dictator over the empty promises of a Republican Senate. Yeah. The Republic wasn't really functioning and doing anything for them. And so when this guy said, "Hey, I'm here to bring gold not just to the Senate and to the noble families, but to the Roman people," he went into the what is that region called, Anthony, where all the poor people lived? I forgot what it was called. There was a region. We could look it up. I'd like the people to know. And he went into that area and he threw gold trinkets out to the people in the streets. So yeah, the Roman people were like, this dude actually cares. He's feeding us. He's giving us gold. He's making us prosperous. And with the Senate, it's like, oh no, we need to hoard the wealth. So we know what to do with it. What, have your sixth villa out there in Macedonia? No, thank you. That's why they didn't appreciate the Senate. So
do you think Shakespeare got it right?
I think that he did pretty close. I mean, so they killed him. And then if you watch the show Rome from HBO, it's an older show now, 15 years old probably, something like that, maybe longer, maybe 20. But it's pretty good. It actually shows like what happened. And so he came back and they killed him because and then they thought it was just going to be swept under the rug and everybody was going to be okay with it, but it wasn't. And Augustus, his heir, his great nephew, him and Mark Antony joined forces and built an alliance, and they went after every single one of those scoundrels and they had them killed. The only one I really look at with regret was Cicero. I liked him. I think he was on the wrong side of history, and I think his personal vendetta, him and Mark Antony, otherwise he should have been left alone because I think Cicero deserved to live. Other than him, the other ones should have died like dogs because of what they did.
Yeah.
You lied to this man and you got him in there and you murdered him with your own hands because you couldn't have someone else do it because they wanted someone else to do it. People don't realize, though, that they tried to assassinate him multiple times. It didn't work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so Augustus was the one that created the which would eventually become the Praetorians, the purple. So when he became emperor, he gave his first speech. He's like, "You're not going to kill me like you did my uncle. This isn't happening." And they didn't. And he was always armed and always ready. And he brought his soldiers into the Senate. One time he came in on his horse, which led to, this nutball Caligula saying, "Yes, my ancestor did the same thing. So now Anansis Titus is going to be a senator." And you're like, okay, now we've gone too far. This guy's nuts.
I mean, in those times and other places around the world throughout history, there was violence that would shock the most violent of today. The people that think they're the biggest badasses today wouldn't be able to exist in those times. They have no idea what it was like, even reading about it. They think discomfort is losing your Wi-Fi. Like discomfort. It was all about how you were going to die. And I saw the other night. I saw, and obviously this is based on the same Scandinavian folk tale that Shakespeare used for Hamlet, but The Northman. I love that movie.
Oh, that's a great movie.
That's great.
Love that movie. But you think about the discomfort of living during that time. It was about how am I going to die? The
average king would live how someone in the ghetto would live.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how. And they were that was you can imagine what the proletariat went through. I can't remember the name of the area that there was. Not the Palatine area in Rome, but there was a terrible area. It was like for the poor people. They ate rats. It was actually served in their little taverns and stuff. They actually
that's still a meal in Vietnam. It's
called
vol. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's let me tell y'all something, folks. When the hurricane was raging, this guy wrote it out, and I know because I talked to him. We were on the phone. We lost connection at one point, and so we just prayed for you, and we hoped for the best. But the next day, you messaged me and you said, "Hey," and you were like, "Still alive," and I was like, "Oh, thank God." And so we got back on the phone, and
I got lucky in comparison to other people around here. Forget it.
You were dumping water out of your house.
Yeah, it was in here.
Yeah.
This office.
Wow.
But I got
no rot, no mold, nothing.
No, well, there were some things I had to deal with, but we dealt with it, and that's it. I mean, I got lucky. I can't complain. People that lost their entire livelihood, their houses, everything. 6 feet of water plus fire and brimstone. You know, I mean, like, I can't complain. I'm not going to complain about what happened here. It won't. So
Hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so you toughed it out, and that was a scary touch and go thing. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was having dreams the night before. It's weird. I fell asleep the night before listening to Gilmore's, from Pink Floyd's album, the song he sang with his daughter, amazing song. And I fell asleep and I had a dream about water coming in through the window for no reason, you know? And then I was feeling nervous about it all day. And I'm like, man. And then when there was a fire truck that came through the neighborhood telling people to leave. You got to leave right now. Like, you have to leave. And I'm like, all right, I'm staying. And then I was like, uh-oh, what do I do now? But nothing happened to the point where I was going to be, it's going to be the end of the perfect storm.
Oh.
We're talking about water, and I just opened it, and they filled it all the way to the very top, and it just squirted all over the place. Oh my gosh, man!
That's why Chris has a jug.
Bigger than yours.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I'm glad that you wrote it out safely, though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was crazy talking to you the night before when it really hit.
I appreciate it. I really do. You know,
I kept texting you, and when you didn't text for a while, my wife was like freaking out. And I said, "Well, give him some time, and let's, But you finally texted back, and that was good. I had a few friends that went through that crap.
Sitting in here, and then I look down, and I see water coming in, and I'm like, oh no.
Did you sandbag it all?
No, it was seeping from
Oh.
underneath the foundation of the house.
Oh.
Yeah, it was bad.
Like crawl. Like
Yeah.
Crawl.
Yeah.
I
thought everything.
if you'd have had a gator in there, that would have been really interesting.
Right.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, because I wanted to ask Monica about your take on some folklore. That's what we were going to get into. And so I have a question, and you can both put your 2 cents in or whatever. We've been doing a lot of work about vampires lately. And somebody asked, are we going to talk about vampires? Yes, I want to. But there are people who still believe, and I'm not one of them now, I promise you. I used to be. I was probably that way even up until a couple of years ago. Like, we had done one show on them?
Yeah.
Right.
And I hate to admit this, but I'll be honest. We were getting stories, and Tony had a folder, and I said, get rid of it. They're crackpots. This is stupid shit. They're not. Nobody's going around drinking people's blood.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend of mine at the gym who was from the Philippines, and he was doing deadlifts. I'll never forget. He's a big guy, Manny. He's a big dude. He puts the weights down, and he takes his belt off, and he says, my friend, these things are real. And I looked at him, and I said, you're being serious? And he's like, yes. He's like, I and my brother, we see these things 100%. And he sat there, and he proceeded to tell us a terrifying tale. I told it on the show about this vampire that tried to grab him through the window. What I started to do after the description he gave me, I started digging through my computer, and I found about 24 different cases. And I was like, maybe they're real. So I went to my wife, and I said, what if they're not just stories? What if, and
Right.
She stops, and she's like, I've always thought that they were real.
Well, I believe there are, this goes way back in folklore throughout the world, ancient history, vampirism one way or another exists. But I think also, obviously, there are people who believe they're vampires, and it's similar to lycanthropy, right? Where, look, just recently, last week, a guy, and I can share this with you in private, he contacted me and believed he's a werewolf. And he started sending me pictures of his hairy arms and making a face. And, and I said, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. And, he got into more details, and it sounds like lycanthropy to me, which there aren't a lot of modern cases of that. And what about the Count of Saint Germain?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did a show where we talked about Saint Germain, and
Yeah.
Saint Germain to me is an immortal. Now, people have begged and begged and begged for more stories about immortals, and I told them, I said, I don't have a whole lot. I do now, the Jian Zhang. Two of our friends who were Chinese, the first one gave us the story, and the second one, he reaffirmed it. He said, yes, this is true. And they're from two different provinces, Manchuria and Fujian. And so they both repeated it. Now, my one friend from Hong Kong, that's a different one with the hopping ghost. It's not a hopping, it's a vampire. And that's what they call it, the hopping ghost. And so you go down the list of all these different types of beings, what they could be. One of the interesting things, and I've said this multiple times on the show, the Bulgarian / Romanian, Hungarian, there's a little area right there.
Mhm.
They believe that when a vampire or when a werewolf is killed, you have to stake it. Once the body turns back into human,
Wow.
there's a very specific ritual. You have to cross the arms, and you have to stake the hands, the right over the left, with. Wow, yeah. See,
Yeah, nice.
yeah, Fangoria. So
Yeah.
you take that stake. Here's mine right here. I don't know what this is. I've had it in my family for generations, but I think it's, I don't know, it could be a stake. I don't know.
Hold on.
You take it and you stake it through the hands and into the heart. And then you cut the head off and you burn both, but burn them separately. And when the ashes are just embers, you have to spread holy water. This is an Orthodox Christian belief. You have to spread holy water over it a very specific way. And you have to repeat a prayer 7 times. And that werewolf will not come back as a vampire. Otherwise, it does. Yeah, vampire hunting.
That's pretty cool.
I showed you that before. Those are very real. I want to buy one. A friend of mine has a collector's shop right in Lakeline in Austin.
Yeah, he has several of them.
Several of them, and he's got them for sale. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I built this. I made this.
Oh, you made that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was this is some years ago, and I had to deal with someone I cared about very much, and they were in this kind of mind control cult. And so the cult leaders were kind of after me. And so I'm sitting on my office floor at my previous residence building this thing, and Ed Neal from Texas Chainsaw Massacre called me, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm building a vampire killing kit." He's like, "You're going to need it."
And if anybody doesn't know who that is, he's the guy that was like, "My brother makes good head cheese." That dude, right?
Yeah. But
he was
that actually was so the existing wood, it was just wood, was a special effects makeup kit I had as a kid. And so I just converted it into the vampire killing kit, so I redid the whole thing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you take Saint Germain, who may or may not be vampiric, and you take him and you put him in the category of immortals, and we're going to get another set of stories and it's going to be about the Jian Jing, and then we also have an episode coming out about the bat creature, Camazots. Now, a friend of mine, I call him Scotty. He's from Scotland. Somebody tried to say he's being racist again. I'm like, dude, shut up. I jokingly call him that. It's not his name. Okay, we'll call him Mac. It's the beginning of his last name. But Mac he spent time in Olmeca, Mexico, down in the Yucatan, in Veracruz, and in a place, I forgot the name of the city. It's down in the anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not important right now, but we're going to talk about it. And whenever we do that show, I was thinking vampire, I was going to call it the Olmecan vampire because it was the land of the Olmecs, which predated the Mayans and, of course, the Aztecs. I don't think that's a good name for it. I believe that this was Camazots, the real actual Camazots. I believe that the Mayans lived in fear of this dude. They worshipped him because they were terrified of him. He was the god of death. And there is a legend of these two twins who went into the underworld, and one of them was beheaded by Camazots. I can't remember his name. And then he took the head back to the other gods, which created a game that the Mayans played. and you had to get this little rubber ball into this little bitty hole, and if you didn't do it, then you died. And they said that this was
I went to that pyramid. I went to what was it, Tulum.
Mm-hmm.
I was there where they played that game.
Yeah.
In that courtyard.
Yeah, it's a Mayan-based game, yeah. And the Mayans were not a centralized empire like the Aztecs. Now, this is why history is important, folks, and why I talk about it. Because the Mayans had like 12 different city-states. Occasionally, they would fight with each other, but they were usually too busy capturing the neighbors from the jungle and taking them to be sacrificed. Think of Apocalypto, Mel Gibson. Now, that is in contrast to the Aztecs, who were very centralized, and it all centered around Tenochtitlan. And they, well, also Teotihuacan, but they didn't go much beyond. They just kind of in the little area around Lake Texcoco, and they just took over step by step, and then they just.
I love the Aztec death whistles.
Yeah,
Yes.
the death whistle is an amazing thing, and it's
Right.
cool as hell. I think, though, the difference, though, between the Aztecs and the Mayans is that it was a lot easier to be conquered, as the Aztecs were, by the Spanish because of their centralized whatever. The Mayans were spread out. And so there were two cities that actually, this is true, they found this out. The one started with a P. I can't remember the name. It's like has a weird name. It was so deep into the jungle that they had kind of withdrawn into themselves. And it wasn't until the late 1700s, early 1800s that it was even discovered. The Spaniards hadn't gone that deep into the jungle. They figured we didn't, whatever we had conquered, it was done. If there were more, they would have come and done whatever. But then they found it. And they had all kind of like congregated in this jungle, and they were all inbred. You know, they knew about the Spaniards, but the Spaniards didn't know about them, and their Indian allies did not know about this particular stronghold. It was a Mayan stronghold. Now, there was another city that was closer to the coast that wasn't strategic, so they didn't really mess with it, and they just kind of like traded with them, and they just left them to their own whatever. Too much trouble. But when the Guatemalan Civil War broke out, guess what? Those two cities provided the bulk of the soldiers that were actually the Mayan descended people who fought for the communists. It was easy because they were very illiterate, very ignorant, and they didn't know much about the modern world. So they were taught how to shoot guns and told by the Communist Party, hey, you're being oppressed. What they always say, and you're going to be rich if you go kill these people. And that's what they did. But the war went on for 30 years, which kind of decimated the Mayan population, or what was left of it. After the war was over, okay, now I got to say this. I've been there. I've been down to Guatemala. So I do know, I didn't go deep into I had a friend that lived down in deep down in the Yucatan of Mexico. I went across the border once. I didn't go back because the border, like we talked about in one of our episodes, a friend of ours was a border patrol for Mexico, border Mexico, Guatemala. And he piqued my interest with a lot of weird stories that he was getting from the border, that he gave us from the border. And so I had a guy reach out to me. Well, it was through him. He says, there's a Scottish guy you should talk to that goes down there pretty regularly. And he lived there amongst the remnants of the Mayans. And he even slept in their temples. He did something that my friend did. I wouldn't do. I was too terrified. We were in a Mayan temple, and this guy, this is years ago, he went and slept in the sacrificial altar. And he could see up into the night sky. And he said that he had the weirdest dreams, and that he floated up out of his body, and that he saw into the past. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Well, I wouldn't doubt it. But this same friend slowly went out of his mind. And by 2011, he'd committed suicide. But that guy told me some weird stuff that he saw when he was down there. Like I said, I did not have the guts to go and sleep inside of the altar. It's kind of like a bowl the way it's shaped, so it can catch the gore that comes out. So what I think my friend Scotty found was these people being preyed upon by a Camazotz being. And that episode, The Terror of Camazotz, is going to come out. I'm going to talk about the stories that go along with this being. Oddly enough, the story actually begins in New York City because there's a guy who's a businessman who got in touch with me. He's from Colombia, but he moved to New York, and he was raised partially part of his life up in upstate New York, and then down because he was adopted. Didn't know his family, and it's funny because when I was a kid, he goes, I was so light skinned, I thought I was white. I thought I was just a Caucasian. I didn't know that I had Hispanic blood even. Is that then my mother, she was like, no, you were adopted and blah blah blah. There was a war in Colombia and there were orphans, and it was the what's it called, the SARF, what's it called, the communist party,
The SARC. Yeah.
or SARF or SARC, whatever. And they had created entire villages of orphan children, and then they would raise them to be soldiers. Well, the narcos did the same thing, ultimately creating their own little armies and whatever. And then they would work together, then they'd fight, and then blah, blah, blah. It was just a big mess, but he was one of those. And so he ended up meeting this girl in a nightclub, just a chance encounter, and she was Guatemalan. He went back down to visit with her. And when he returned, he began seeing something that he had seen down there. So anyway, the whole episode is gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be. We're thinking about talking about it on Sunday, but we may just touch on the points now and we're gonna do a pre-record. But that one is very interesting because we just did the Lechusa, and so when you start looking at these flying creatures. The reason I say this too, and I asked the guy, I said, why do you think that it was Camazotz? And he says, because it looked like a giant bat. This ugly, deformed, bat-faced creature, but it had human legs, backward bent legs, and it had arms. He goes, so I believe that that's what it was. So when I talked to Scotty Mack, I talked to him, and I said, hey, you spent time down there working with a friend of yours who was an archaeologist. He actually went down there just for the heck of it. He was a mercenary. I've known the guy for years. I've known him since the late 90s. And I said, what do you know about this, the Olmec, whatever? He started to tell me a story about vampires, but I don't think that's what it is. It is vampiric. It does drink your blood, and it decapitates you. But there is a creature called the Corte Cabeza down in Guatemala. And this thing is called the head cutter. And what it is a giant winged being, but it supposedly looks very much like a giant prehistoric bird with teeth. And that it will swoop down and it will bite off the head of a person.
What is the
back in
Quetzalcoatl? What is that?
Oh,
Well, Quetzalcoatl, that's another thing. Now, you've probably seen the movie Q.
Oh, yeah. I saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. It scared the crap out of me. I was like, what in the hell
right?
am I doing out here, dude? and I went for a friend. And get this, it was my friend Scott's birthday. What the heck is the coincidence with that, right? Mm-hmm. But that was, Q would be, that's Aztec.
Okay.
So we'll stay with this for right now, but bring that up. It's a good point. It's the feathered serpent. But all over that region, serpents, lizards, reptilians, and then things that fly. They're all it's everywhere. And so I've always wondered about why the lechuza was so important to these brujeria, these brujas that do this. And it typically, overwhelmingly, actually, they're female. Every now and then you'll get a story of a male brujo, but that's a bruja, whatever. But it's not as common as the female version of it. Now, that could go back to the Watchers, or as some people claim. Now, here's something interesting. The Anunnaki had slaves, right, that they had for 150,000 years called the Ajiji. They themselves, the hierarchy of the Ajiji, were taken and turned into flying beings that were genetically manipulated, in my opinion, and used as go get it, fetch it, whatever. But the reptilians, known as the draconians, only because that's where they came from, they actually had a hierarchy that was flying whatever, these flying beings or whatever. And when they invaded, supposedly, now this is we're getting into the, what do you call it? The ancient aliens stuff,
Mhm.
right? They interbred with the Ajiji, using them to create a warrior race that would fight against the surface dwelling, because they went underground, the surface dwelling Anunnaki. Ultimately, Nibiru came back around. The Anunnaki packed up and left and told the humans, "You're on your own. Goodbye. Deal with the chaos and carnage that we left behind." And so you have these Gigi that were bred with the reptilians, also bred with humans, also bred with the angels, and they created all these horrible hybrids. But then the humans bred with the apes in the woods and the Bigfoot and everything else, and they created all kinds of horrible hybrids and all this other crap. So you really don't know what's what. All we know is what ended up where. And these flying bat-like creatures, I think there's more than one, of course, come from, I believe, the underground cave systems down there in the Yucatan. And I believe that this is where the legend of Camazotz comes from. I think that they were a race of beings that were probably created by the interbreeding or intergenetically manipulation of these ancient aliens. They created these things. Now, when they were killed, this is the deluge. When they were killed, they became evil spirits for all time, right? The spirits that these vampires claim attached to them in the lower back and the lower lumbar region and in the tailbone region, they say it hurts like being stung by a giant scorpion, and then it comes out their neck, and the other can see through their eyes, and they join together like venom, like a symbiotic demonic union. This is what I've been told by the vampires that do this.
Did you ever read Heinlein's The Puppet Masters? There was a movie eventually made, but they say it was the inspiration for Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But there was this, it was supposed to be an alien, extraterrestrial type creature that would latch on, a parasite, take over someone's consciousness. You know, these things have been in folklore and fiction for a very long time.
I believe it's self-disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I believe it is. And so these beings, they attach to this, and this becomes this vampiric being. Now, there is one type of vampire that is very much like the Camazotz. It is a blood-drinking, giant bat-like creature. Now, they can also be metaphysical and spiritual, because those that were killed now are evil spirits roaming the earth. They're part angel and then you have the humans, who are literally basically the Anunnaki bred with the apes in the forest, right? This is what some people believe. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but some people believe that. They took early hominids and they bred them with humans and made them into these, beings. Now, Noah was said to be, not in the Bible, but it goes in depth. It wasn't in the Bible, but not. It goes in depth in the Sumerian tablets, that he was born of pure white skin with pale blue eyes, and that when he was first born, they thought that he was an Anunnaki, but he wasn't. He was a fourth generation of a human, and he had the Anunnaki bloodline. So he was given that ability to whatever, and he had the control over certain elements of the Ajiji, which were these lesser beings that had been enslaved by the Anunnaki. They had been brought to Earth for the express purpose of just absolutely, that's your job, to mine for gold. Humans later, after the uprising, after 150,000 years of enslavement, which is a long time to us, but is nothing to them because of their lifespans were tens of thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So they created humans. And then the humans began to rebel. And ultimately, Enki says, okay, enough of this. We're out of here. And Lil didn't want to pull out, but he said, okay, fine. If you're not going to run it, then we're going to just destroy it. So they left it, and they left the lizards to go underground. Now, if you've ever read the Lacerda files, it does talk about this, but it doesn't go, not one particular source can get you from point A to point Z. You have to find other sources to keep going to read all of this. And that's what I've done. I've read probably 50 different sources on this.
What would you say is the oldest source that you've read?
The Sumerian tablets, but even before that, though, they had a tower at Göbekli Tepe. Now, not very many people have been able to look at it. There are Russian documents that talk about the Turks having let them take a look, but then they were told they can't take any sort of photographs of it. And it is a tower. Now, if you've ever heard of the Dacian Tower in Romania, when the Romans conquered the Dacians, this is why history is important, folks. I always say this. They kept a record of it. It's a pillar that showed everything that happened during the Dacian War. That's exactly what happened at Göbekli Tepe. There was a giant pillar. And that pillar actually predates the Sumerian tablets by about 4,000 years. So you have that, and then you have the Vedas, who have been rewritten and updated and whatever, who knows. There are ashrams in India that are written in Tamil that they claim go back 15,000 years. Now, if you listen to Graham Hancock, it goes back 28 to 38,000 years. I believe this. I believe that our history goes back infinitely long ways. I believe that civilization has risen and fallen so many times we can't even possibly fathom. But there has been genetic manipulation and genetic tampering. I think that Genesis is very, very young. And that's why a lot of these creationists believe that we're only 5,000 or 6,000 years old, because they're going by Genesis. The book of Job predates Genesis.
Yeah.
I mean, when I argue with people and they get really, really upset and in their emotions when I tell them, if God created, if the one that you believe that's God, because I know who I believe is God, but some people believe that the God that they worship, he hovered over the face of the deep, right? And he saw that it was formless and void. So that means that there was already a planet here that was covered in water. So that would speak to who they believe is God did not actually create the earth. It was already here. That is an issue, because if that is the God that, so I believe the father of Christ, and that's why there was such a problem and a schism between Christianity and Judaism, and Jesus was literally the schism, because he told them, your father is not my father. You're worshiping Shaitan. You're of the synagogue of Shaitan. And he tells us that Shaitan is the ruler of this world. I believe that there is the Tesseract, which is basically an example. Carl Sagan showed us the Tesseract, and he said, this is the fourth dimension. This is what it is. I believe this is where they come from. The fourth density, the fourth dimension, whatever you want to call it. These beings, right? And then they set themselves up as God. Just because we're so far down on the rung, we think that anything more powerful than us is God. So anything and anyone can say, hey, I'm God. But Christ was sent here by the omnipotent mind of God, that is the all-powerful God, the outer God, the one that rules above the seventh heaven, the one true God. And it says, I'm sending my son in the flesh to teach you. Okay. Now, if you look into your Bible, I'm going to show you something here. This is very important. Hold on one second. Work. I wish I could get away from work. Okay. But I'm going to read this to you. This is important right here, folks. Matthew 26:53. And usually when I quote the Bible, I want you to go and open it up and read it yourself. So I don't always give you the exact verse, because then it'll make you read and look through the, what you need to. But if you read the Matthew 26:53, Jesus talks to the disciples and he says, do you think I cannot call on my Father and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? Now, a legion back in those days, in the Roman times, consisted of 6,000 soldiers. But they were always backed up by at least 1,200 to 2,000 auxiliary, slingers, cavalrymen, and bowmen. So you had about 8,000 men. So you take 8,000 times 10 legions. Jesus says I could call on you. It's 80,000 angels. They could come down and wipe out this entire planet. And these monkeys, the Pharisees and the Romans and whoever else, the Judeans who were trying to murder him, would have been wiped out like that. It would have been over. Like, this has been done before. And Jesus is like, look, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to fulfill this, what needs to happen. Because he came to teach the word to the Jew, the Greek, and the Gentile, like that all mankind could have salvation. He's giving you a way out, folks, is what he's doing. He took one for all of us. He was killed, brutally murdered, but his sacrifice gives you the ability to transcend. These beings that come from this fourth dimension, the Tesseract, whatever, they are nothing compared to the next level and the next level and the next level. In Islam and in some versions of Christianity, God exists on the seventh plane. Okay. When you look at Michikaku's work, what I think is very accurate, it's 11 dimensions, some say 12. But I would say 11, you know. God exists from 7 through the highest. Now, Jesus' Father, the true God, who's not the God of this world, he's the God of all things, the entire multiverse. He exists above all of it. He is the great I am. There is a counterfeit that goes around saying that and has dabbled and messed with and tampered with whatever. And that is Shaitan. That's a title. I believe in my mind that it's Lucifer. And that's why Luciferians worship him, because he is the God of this world. He was cast down here because Jesus says, I saw him fall to earth like lightning, because he was kicked out of heaven by St. Michael.
How do you feel about Milton's Paradise Lost, the entire perspective in there?
He's looking at it from the devil's perspective, I guess. I mean, like, you know, but he's proclaiming his version of it. I look at it kind of like the guys that are always messing with me. Let me tell you my story about how I started crap and then I got slapped. Don't do it. You know, I mean,
I love those paintings by Gustave Doré, though. They're beautiful.
I mean, yeah. But if you stop and you look at this from beginning to end and you see this tapestry for what it is, then you can delve into all these different realms of mythology and you know, magic, which is really just science that we haven't understood yet. We think it's magic. Magic is just a term for we don't know what the hell it is. That's really what it is. I mean, you know, there's dark, we don't know what the hell it is, and then there's light, we don't know what the heck it is. That's pretty much what it is. And then when Lawrence says Baal. Now, if you look at Baal, there were multiple Baals. Baal, the one that was always fighting with Yahweh, which was the God of the Israel, which I don't look at him because Jesus says Abba. He never, ever calls him Yahweh, never. So Baal Haman, that was the one that was his chief rival. And he was actually worshipped by the northern Israelites, southern Babylonians, sort of in between. Somebody said that the Tanakh, they were like, no, the Tanakh was Babylonian. No, it wasn't. It was actually it's the Hebrew Jewish canon. It became the written canon, the oral Torah, all of it was put together. They describe Yahweh as a dragon. Folks, I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. They describe him as a dragon. And now somebody says the demiurge. Yeah. Now, the demiurge is the Gnostic view of what God is. Now, people have a big time problem with me talking on this. And I have no doubt that my audience will change as we go further along, because there are those that are going to get it. And they're going to try and keep learning, keep coming back. And there are those that are going to go, no, I won't cry about no Anunnaki. I'm out here. And they're going to do that. And that's perfectly fine with me. I don't want those people around because they're ignorant. And you're never going to learn the truth. You need to know who God is before you go around worshiping him, because you don't know. There are people who believe that celebrities get up there and say, I would like to thank God. Do you know who God is to them? Who is God to them? He's Lucifer. He's Moloch. He's Baphomet. Those are their gods. And they're all different. They're not all the same being. They may look a lot alike, but they're not. There's a bloodline there, folks. Satan or Shaitan is a race of beings. It's not one guy. It's a title. And so when you start to, that's led.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says we are all animals. See, that's letting that bestial nature out. That is one of the tenets of the Temple of Che that I was told by the werewolf part of that, the lycanthropy. They were like, allow your bestial nature to come out.
It's like shedding your
Shutting-
humanity.
Yeah, shut down your humanity. Allow yourself to be taken over by evil. Lucas Williams says their god is Mammon. Yeah, sure he is. And I was making a joke the other day about Leviathan. I was calling him Leviathan and some other stuff. I found out who that was, though. That really, never really did a lot of looking into him. I didn't know.
It was some of that folklore was put into this.
There it is.
Yeah.
The Cenobites. But when you look at Leviathan, he's actually the god of envy. And now these people that don't like us, they're saying that we worship Leviathan. I'm like, why would I be envious of anything you have? You have nothing to be envious of. So that wouldn't be my God. But these people, they really believe that they are worshiping the one true God because they're worshiping the God of Israel. But that God is very specific that he is only the God of the children of Israel. He is not for export. And he's only down with the land of Israel. That is because Enlil, was the main chief god or the main boss of the Anunnaki. And he had 12 people underneath him, 12 beings. And one of them was Yahweh. And he put him in charge of that region. And so Yahweh actually led them away from the gods of Egypt into his land. And he set himself up and he gave them the Ark of the Covenant, which may or may not have been a super weapon with electrical power, possibly nuclear power. We don't know for sure, but it gave the Israelites a lot of victories. But David saw him and described him to like a T, like a dragon. He said, I called upon him. He says this in the Tanakh. Now, they don't look at the Bible as correct. They look at it as a Christian version of their history watered down with the books kind of out of order and just thrown together. That's what the rabbis believe. I know this because I've studied with them. And I know that the clerics look at it totally different. They take the Judaism and they kick out the Christianity and they continue from Judaism. But I tell Christians and Muslims this: if your starting point is wrong, how can the middle and the end be correct? You can't. Okay? So you have to have the starting point that is correct. If you want to know what these beings are, to me it's very simple. They're the genetic tampering, the remnants of what was left behind by countless visits from different types of beings. Some of them that we would consider godlike or immortal because they lived to be tens of thousands of years. Why do you think that there was only 7 rulers of Samaria? And the history was 140,000 years long, but there were only 7 rulers. 2 died of unnatural deaths, right? So these guys were living to be tens of thousands of years. Now, if you listen to the Indians from the Hindus, they say that one divine year is 365 years. So when Jesus says he's going to have a millennial reign, he's not talking about 1,000 years. He's talking about 365,000 years, because Jesus is one of the immortals. He's the most important one. He's the direct son of the one most high. So when he came to the Jews and told them, I'm the son of God, they're like, no, you're not, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, you're confused. You think I'm talking about your God. I'm not the son of your God. I'm the son of the one most high. My God created your God and me and you and all of us and everything that is. You must be talking about the other guy. And he compared them to Satan. And when he says Satan, there's not just one. There's multiple, right? And so Lucifer, I believe, created this counterfeit world, okay? There is a story about Lucifer, that he was one of the Anunnaki and that he fell into the abyss. But he had minions with him, companions. You remember, Anthony, the story? Mm-hmm. Okay, am I going to get into a whole thing because it'll take all night? We can get into a deep dive on this, folks, and I'll cite sources and everything else. Right now, I'm just trying to tell you what happened. There is a story that he was one of them, an explorer. You know how the Cenobites say that we're explorers from the edges of experience? Lucifer was that guy. In the abyss, he was taken and he was tormented and tortured by what Lovecraftians would call the elder gods. These beings go beyond anything we could possibly imagine, and they are kind of trapped in like a crease in the blanket. God put them there for a reason. They're not to get out. They're like General Zod in the deal. Lucifer, thinking that he was like God, he was going to be this great explorer, not unlike like Magellan or anybody else. He falls into this. He comes out. He's completely warped. He's been completely inundated with parasitic thoughts, beings doing things to him. He goes back to the kingdom of heaven and decides that he's God, that he's going to be God. And God's like, no. And one of the angels, one of the archangels, who wasn't even one of the high, he wasn't even considered the highest angel, was able to defeat him and kick him out of heaven, and then he crashed down to earth, which was for all intents and purposes a prison planet. So you have this whole epic that plays out, right? The problem with this whole story is that it doesn't jibe with the people that are in charge. They're like, we really like the story where we're in charge because God said so. So we're going to go with that God because he gives us the power over you. We don't like the God that sent his son that frees you all from this crap. He frees you from the will of Dharma. He frees you from all of these, this crap that you're living in. You don't have to return. You don't have to do any of that because Jesus said so. And they don't like it. They don't like that at all. And then the time that we're living in, according to the Hindus, is called the Kali Yuga. It is the end, the last cycle. But it's not the end. It's when Brahma dies, according to them. But his son Krishna returns to Earth, takes care of all the bad guys, and then brings the good guys back out of hiding, and then they succeed. And then there's 365,000 years of peace. Then there's something that happens, right? The evil returns for like a little season. Sounds familiar, right? They defeat it again. That particular being goes back into the pit. Then the great reign of the Satya Yuga begins again. And you have another 100,000 years of peace. And then slowly but surely, there's a little bit of a decline in morality, culminating in, I believe, it's 1,230,000 years of peace and prosperity. But ultimately, it leads into the Techa Yuga, where evil begins to show itself again. And then the cycle goes all over. And this just keeps happening, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening. When you stop and you look at the hamster wheel that we're on, this is very much playing out in front of us. And everybody's looking for the beast. They're looking for the Antichrist when they should be looking for Jesus Christ. Because Jesus says there's going to be many of them. A lot of them are going to come and they're going to go. It's going to happen over and over and over again. And everybody's looking for the mark of the beast. Dude, it's everywhere. There are people who wear it proudly. A tattoo. I saw a guy at the store, 666. I'm standing there looking at him. I'm like, he's proud of it. He's absolutely proud of it. He already gave himself the mark.
He probably doesn't even know why he has it.
He doesn't even know why he has it.
It's a cool thing.
It's probably some heavy metal thing to him.
Yeah.
He had a tattoo on his eyelid, too, so I don't know if that tells you anything.
I mean,
he's not a guy that's going to walk into my office and get a job.
On my shoulders and stuff, but I got them when I was a kid. So
you have the same. I got this one here, and then I got the barbed wire right there. Of course, it's the 90s thing. Yeah, those are pretty cool, though.
Yeah,
those are pretty cool ones.
This is my favorite. This one, where is it? The eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You got some nice ones. Yeah, I got the stereotypical barbed wire. I'm like, hey, here it is.
I got that one too. Look, I was a kid.
Right there.
Right here. My friend, my friend was doing a stick and poke to start, so that's when I started.
Oh.
Getting, yeah. And then he got a homemade gun and he started doing them, professionally eventually. So.
Yeah. But I didn't want to get into a whole Bible sermon, but that if that breaks it down at all, I can go into any of these subjects deep, and eventually we will go, and we have to go into each one of these. The problem with this is that I don't believe every bit of it. That's the problem. I believe that some of it may be accurate, but then some of it is just stories. But then here on PRT, we do retell people's stories. Now, and Dick Richards says, mark not your bodies as the pagans do. Okay, and who says that?
Like,
But the rest of that verse is like, mark not your bodies for the dead or something. So, I mean, there's a context there.
Yeah, there's always the context. And
I'm just saying, like, that's debatable, man. Come on.
yeah, I'm not in a rush to get any more.
Yeah, I'm not taking mine off.
Not in a rush to go to hell.
So, Monica, you are the folklorist here. What are your thoughts on any and everything I may have said?
It was beautiful.
I have that one too.
Yeah.
The Saint Benedict.
Very nice.
I always keep my Saint Benedict like right here, man on my neck.
Let's see.
What are your thoughts, Monica?
On everything that you said.
On just anything.
And everything that you just said. That was a lot coming at me. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, what do you think? I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you believe? Let's start with let's start with Camazotz. What do you think of that? Do you think that being is a race of beings roaming around, still drinking blood and knocking people's heads off?
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I do. I don't know Mayan because he's Mayan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know Mayan folklore as well as I know Aztec. But I do believe that all stories have a seed of truth, at least in them. Folklore stories, in my opinion, have seeds of truth. And so whether they're still roaming around doing that, I don't know. Do I think at some point in time this being or these creatures were out there performing these acts and terrorizing people? Absolutely. I do. I do believe in that.
One of the things that I talked with Ken Gerhardt about, and me and Ken are good friends. We've been friends for years. But he was talking about the Younger Dryas and, of course, the Ice Age and all this other stuff. And I said this, and I've said this with multiple friends of. We have a lot of mutuals, all three of us, and I've talked to many of these people, and we've discussed. Everybody has a little bit of a different. I saw Ryan Edwards in the chat earlier. He's more of a physical guy, whatever. I say this. I do believe that it would be very hard for these beings to still exist from millions of years ago. Ken was up in he was looking for the Amarok. He was up there in Alaska and missing Alaska.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't think that this thing could possibly still be the Amphicyon, whatever. And I said, if these things go up under the earth, okay, they dwell within the earth. It's completely possible, and in fact plausible, that they could just continue to grow and evolve and live down there because the temperature doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, they're not worried about what's going on up here. And in fact, life on Mars, I have a remote viewer friend who's she believes 100% life on Mars is happening, but it's inside. And so they don't have to worry about we're all frozen up here or burned to a crisp because they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the Anunnaki are returning, like a lot of people say they are, we're sitting ducks. We can't do anything about it. Their technology outweighs us 1,000,000 to 1. Each one of them as an individual has the strength of 100 of us. I mean, what can you do? I mean, they could wipe us out. Pretty simple, and you can't go underground because that is where the reptilians live. So you're pretty much stuck like Chuck, but we to them are their property. Now, I don't believe that they ultimately created us. I think God created us. The God that we know of as the Father of Christ, the mind of Christ. Think of like Tesla. His version of God to me is the closest. He's not like a human. He's like an infinite mind being that is just formless, but he is a giant consciousness that envelops us all. And his energy, which we know as the Holy Spirit, it goes through all of us, like the Force in Star Wars. And Jesus says, that is who created me. That is my Father. And he accuses the Pharisees. He says, you are worshiping the Shaitan. You're of the temple synagogue of Shaitan. He's very adamant about that. And then he really goes after them more than he does the Romans, which really was that was a problem. The Judeans had a big problem with that because they're like, this guy never chastises the Romans. He doesn't say anything to them, but he's constantly harping on us about how evil we are, how bad we are, blah, blah, blah. We got to get rid of this guy. Why was Jesus so adamant about these people being so bad? Like, why was he constantly telling them how evil they were? Why was he constantly challenging them and telling them, I am actually the son? That's pretty cool. Saying that I am the son of the Most High. Why was that was his whole thing? And it was making them angry. They were really starting to chafe under his constant belittlement. And so when they went to get him, and of course, Peter, he cuts off the ear, and it wasn't a Roman soldier. That's not true. It was actually a Judean soldier. He cut the ear off, and Jesus healed him. And he tells his followers, he says, I could call down 10 legions right now and end this. It would destroy everything. I have that in my pocket if I want to, but I'm not going to do that. And he took the stripes, and he went to the underworld too. He went to hell for 3 days and 3 nights. And he actually took the keys of life and death back where they belong. And he did something else. He ministered to those in Hades who were on the verge. They were kind of in between, and he let them free. He freed them. Now, not everyone was free. There are those that are there for a reason. They're in perpetual torment because they're wholly evil. I don't mean H-O-L-Y. I mean W-H, So they're wholly evil people who don't do nothing but just return over and over again to do evil. That's where sociopaths come from. Sociopaths are born. They're not made. Now, you can go through the most horrible, just hammered by circumstances and become a dark, evil person. But at your core, it doesn't change who you really are. You can always go back to God. Those people have no way. They could never possibly go back to God because they were never with God. They're the ones that Jesus says, I never knew you. No matter how much they pray, no matter how much they say, no matter how much they do, at the end, Jesus will say, I never knew you. I never did. Because, yes, you may have said a prayer, but you didn't mean it. And you did everything based on reward or punishment. There was no altruism there. Those people have no redemption. And I've argued with countless Christians and Muslims. No, my friend, everyone can be redeemed. No, they cannot. I promise you, there are people who are sociopaths. John Wayne Gacy comes to mind. They were about to put him to death. His last words, kiss my ass. I mean, yeah, he was hardcore. I mean, he was ready to die.
Son of Sam is a preacher in prison.
Who?
Berkowitz.
Yeah, Berkowitz. That's a different guy. Yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer claims to have found Christ. Everybody's, whatever.
X. Watson. He's another preacher.
Yeah. There's a lot of them, though, that have gone to their grave. They're non-repentant. They never admit to what they've done. They won't help the people. They won't tell anybody where they buried it. They take it to their grave. They are so evil.
Yeah, Tex Watson was the worst murderer in the whole Manson family. And when they told Manson in an interview, Tex has become a preacher, Manson was just like, praise the Lord. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you have these people who say, yes, I've done wrong, and they actually mean it, and they see it. And most of those people have been inundated with parasitic demons.
Yeah.
But then there are those who are absolutely, they don't need demons to tell them anything. They're here. They return for that reason to be evil. They're a wicked player. They're born of contempt, and they will always be wicked players. They will return again and again to lie, steal, deceive, and destroy until the end, when they will all be cast into the pit. Now, make no mistake, there are people who go to the abyss, and they are tormented by demons. You don't get tormented by demons in hell. You burn in hell, okay? The demons that you get tormented by when you go into the abyss. Two different things. There are a lot of things that dwell in that realm of the abyss. That, to me, is where Lucifer cut his teeth on being evil. Prior to that, I believe that he was an angel who was a little too ambitious. God gave them, and I don't believe like the Muslims do, that the angels don't have free will. I don't believe that. I believe God gives everyone free will. It's just how strong of a conviction of the Holy Spirit is within you, whether you do good or not. You
Right.
know, this whole excuse when they say, well, the devil made me do it. Yes, he did. But just like the Nazis, just like the communists, they always use the excuse, well, Stalin told us to, the NKVD, you know. Yeah, but you had a choice whether to murder those Christians or not, or to murder those Armenians, or to murder those Ukrainians. You committed the Holocaust. You did this, you did that, whatever, whoever, whatever. You did this, and they always try to say, well, we were told we had to, you know, whatever. If I was given the order to murder innocent people, that at that point in time, the moment of truth comes, then I'm going to be killed because I'm not going to murder innocent people. Now, would you take the life of someone who had just butchered an entire village? That's another conundrum, right? But that would be a lot easier to swallow than to just line up an innocent person and take their life. Because if I was ever ordered to do that, and they said, and take my word on, take me at my word, we're going to take your head off. Fine. It was only temporary for me anyway.
Living on borrowed time.
You're living on borrowed time. We're not on our own time. We're on God's time. And so they can do whatever they want, but I'm not going to line up an innocent person and shoot them and kill them. They've done nothing to me. That is the true test. And if you wake up every day and you ask yourself, would I be willing to die for what I believe in every day? The answer has to be yes. But what do you believe in? That is the key. And are you believing in something that is incorrect? Because I think countless people have died for false knowledge. And Jesus says, my people die for lack of knowledge. Look it up. Please open the book that people are always quoting from and misquoting and not even reading it. They're always talking about the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. They don't even know what it says. Not that, only that it's incomplete, especially the Old Testament, because the people who it talks about, the Judeans, they don't even believe it's correct themselves. So there's this conundrum there. Like I said, there's a schism that takes place. Now, you have the Jews that don't believe in Christ, the Christians that follow Christ, and then the Muslims who say, yes, we believe in Christ, but he wasn't the Son of God because God to them is Allah. Do you know who Allah was? He was the moon god and a pantheon of 249 gods in the Levant because of the lunar calendar. And knowing what we know now, the lunar calendar is probably more accurate. There again, the moon. What is the moon? Probably something that's not man-made, but something that's artificial. It wasn't natural, that's for sure. It rings like a bell.
Yeah, and all the craters in it are the same depth.
The same depth. So it's like the Truman Show intergalactically. I mean, look at the Black Knight satellite. If you don't know what that is, folks, look it up. That's a weird one. We could talk about all these things all day long, and you would never get to the answers unless you shake the fleas off of you. Okay? Because you're covered in parasites that are trying to warp your brain, warp your mind. I recommend everybody do an actual physical parasitic cleanse. And I recommend everybody do it every few months and do it mentally and spiritually too. Because these parasites do a lot of damage to your brain. And they keep you from the truth. Now, somebody says, does the moon artificially affect Earth via Saturn? Saturn. Now, let's talk about Saturn for a minute. Do you know who Saturn was? Why did the Romans observe the Saturnalia, which was the day of Saturn when everything was upside down? Because Jupiter was their main god. Saturn was Hades, which was the god of the underworld. Not necessarily the devil. He was just in charge of the underworld. That's where you went. Now, there was also Tartarus. The Greeks had two hells, if you want to call it that. They had Hades and they had Tartarus. Tartarus was a really bad place. You didn't want to go there. It was like hell. And Hades was kind of like purgatory, but in jail. Now, the Hebrews had another version of heaven. They had the 5th and 6th level of heaven. Did you know what that was? In the 6th level of heaven, which was just below the presence of God, you could actually be in heavenly jail. It's the truth. They believed that you were not the bad guy, but you weren't really a good guy. So God's going to put you in timeout for a while. And so for a millennium, you're just going to be locked up. No kidding. This is really Hebrew canon. People don't read. They don't know. So you end up with people wondering, what the hell am I seeing? I saw a werewolf running down the road. This can't possibly be real. You have people who've come on this show and have told us that they witnessed a person, a pig, rolling around the ground, turning into a human. They've witnessed tree stumps becoming Bigfoot. These people, absolutely just normal as can be, driving their car through werewolves. Or the women up in Washington, the two sisters that drove through the Bigfoot. How is this possible? How are these things happening? How is Kamazats running around down in the Yucatan decapitating people? How is any of this happening? It's because our world is a lot stranger and a lot weirder than we could possibly imagine. I've interviewed these people. Some of the people I've just read their emails, some of the people I've talked to, and some of them have come on this show and said some of, especially in open lines. You get open lines, they tell you some wild stuff. It's stuff that's shooting from the hip. I've never even heard. They haven't even told me this, and they say it. They'll say, yeah, I emailed you this, but I get 1,000 emails. So, maybe I didn't get to your story. And they will tell you on the show what they see. Now, if one person comes out and just says some crazy stuff, I saw a tree man walking down, whatever, you're like, okay, I'm going to put this in the weirdo file, like, what is it Lau calls the one-off file?
Yeah.
Okay, we put it in the one-off file. But if it comes back around at another person, and then another person, and then another person, okay, now we got an issue.
No, without a doubt. There are odd things. I've heard from several people now over the last decade, including someone I truly care about and believe, that when they were young, something came out of the wall, and it's been called the Harlequin. Have you heard about that?
Mm-hmm.
Small being came
Looks
out
like
of
a little
yeah.
dancing little Harlequin.
And Stephen King loves to tap into this shit, so that little gnome or that goblin from Cat's Eye is the Harlequin. That's all from the Harlequin stories, from real people that have experienced this thing. What is it? I'm not sure, but we've had this in folklore forever. It's been written about forever. And so what are these things? We're living a multi-dimensional existence. That's the only thing I can say. You can't just dismiss what everyone is experiencing. They say, including myself, there have been a lot of people, including yourselves, that have experienced things. Now, can you discount the guy who's in the woods tripping on shrooms and he says he saw asparagus people talk to him?
Uh-huh.
Well, we'd have to find out what he was on. But if you're sober and you're seeing these things, I think it lends to the fact that we're living in this somewhat indecipherable multidimensional existence. And at the very least, you're at least trying to figure it all out by compiling history. I would go back, though, like you are, going back to ancient texts, then going forward, because of some of the modern stuff is getting really muddy. I wouldn't mess with it.
Because it's all melding together. That's the thing. And then we live in an international, I live in an international city. You have all these different types of people, but I enjoy it in the one way that when I talk to people from different cultures, from different places, I like to get to know them. I have a lot of friends from all over the world.
New York City,
Yeah. But here it's a lot more friendly. I'll say that. Austin, you can actually talk to the people, and they're like, "Hey, New York City." They're like, "What do you want?" And they pull out a freaking gun or a taser.
Well, it was, when I lived there, and I was there for 7 years straight. I was born in New York, but I lived in Manhattan for a while by myself. I was very young when I moved there by myself, and I could walk around at 3 a.m. Granted, I had like a padlock with a chain around my neck and a mohawk, but I could walk around at 3 a.m. and nobody messed with me at all. There was one time a dude held a knife to my throat in the subway, but that's when the first week of me living there, and I was just about 18, by myself, and it never happened again. And it was quite a place to be, because you did have all these different cultures. Somebody explained New York recently and said it was very much like London.
About the same population too.
Yeah, because it's such a mixture of people. And even in my own lineage, I'm not just one thing. I'm Italian, Romanian, Russian, Spanish, a whole bunch of things. And, you know, I feel that, I guess I feel that somewhere in my DNA, you know, like, so I can't just identify with one culture at all, you know.
And what about you, Monica? You're like Garitano's last name is Italian, but like he said, he's multiple. What are you, Monica? Tell the audience.
I am German, Welsh, Apache, well, Native American, and Spanish.
No. I got hit with every hostile type of person. I am Spaniard,
Yeah.
Cossack, Comanche, and Scotch Irish. So that, I mean, it is like there is no way out. You were completely, you're going to fight and you're going to have problems. It's just going to be what you are. I call people out. I'm just like, I'm sorry. And people get so mad. They're like, you don't believe my lie. No, I don't. I mean, there was somebody at my conference that just flat out was lying to me. And I'm like, it happened a couple times. And I was like, oh, okay. I was trying to have a good time and I just let it ride. But then they decided to make it into a federal case. Like, I'm going to get this guy because he doesn't believe my bullshit. Well, sorry. You tell me you saw Dobby the house elf. Well, and it basically word for word, it was Harry Potter. Come on.
Do you get a lot of people who say they were reincarnated from a very famous person? You know, like, I was Chef Boyardee in my past.
Yeah.
He was a real guy.
Yeah.
He was actually a real guy. I mean, but it wasn't the way you think it is. I mean, he chose that, moniker or whatever. But
Sure.
So yeah, it's always that. Like, I mean, if I had a past life, because I've seen it, I would say that it wasn't a spectacular guy. Because if I was, I wouldn't be here. Obviously, I didn't do good enough. I mean, I was a German soldier. Another one of my incarnations, I believe, I was just and this sounds crazy, but I had this dream over and over again. I was a light-skinned African-American, and I think I took my own life because it keeps replaying over and over again. When I had these, for about 2 years, I had these dreams, kept happening. And I was living in this really cold place that I found out later on was Cleveland. And I was living alone, and I walked up these rickety stairs every day. And one day I just decided to end it. At least I was seeing that. And I asked someone who was a very credible psychic. She's not alive anymore. And she told me, she's like, that was you. You took your own life. That was the life in between, as a soldier, and then that life, and then this life. I came back in this life.
Have you been in this life? Have you been able to identify any interesting historical people in your lineage? I have a few. I found out about it not that long ago, too, about a decade ago.
Well, the problem for me is that the Comanches and the Cossacks didn't really keep a lot of written records. So,
right.
Spaniards, yes. I had a guy named Juan Diego what's his name? Milagro or Milagro, something like that. This guy was a pirate. Yeah. And my great grandmother had his picture hanging up on the wall because it was from my great grandfather, who was a full-blooded Spaniard. He was a white-looking guy, and he was a Spaniard. And so she kept that picture, and she was a full-blooded Comanche, but she always had that picture in her house. And my grandmother would always be like, not for me, but with the other cousins that were older than me, they said, he watches over us. Bullshit. Because when I had to go pee, he would watch me go down the hallway, and he scared the hell out of me. And he had
his eyes move while you pass by the
dude, he had one, it was a patch on his eye. Remember, me and your mom have talked about this, Anthony.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and be like, I got to pee, but I don't want to go by that damn picture. So one night before I went to bed, me and my cousin Paul Anthony, God rest his soul, he passed away in his sleep years ago. We still don't know how he died. But we took the picture and we put it into a closet, and it was an oil painting. And my grandmother claims that it was painted, get this, back in 1710. That's what she claimed. Now, she lived to be over 100 years old. She was a Comanche woman, never cut her hair. She spoke Nermana. She spoke broken. Her Spanish wasn't clean. It was not like my parents' Spanish. And my dad, even though he's a Caucasian, he spoke pretty good Spanish. But that picture scared the crap out of me as a kid. And so I would go to this house and I would stay there. And you want to talk about running down the hallway. And he had that little conquistador hat or whatever it was on his head, the helmet. And he was like, yeah, like, this is not a good looking, he's evil looking dude, man. And then, so I did some research. This guy was a pirate. Like, he basically hung out in Cuba and in Trinidad, Tobago, these different places. And he went from there to Mexico, basically hijacking and doing all kinds of crap. He was not a good dude. He was a former conquistador that turned rogue and was wanted by, I think it was King Philip who wanted him. They wanted him to take him because he started out taking English and Dutch ships, but then he started taking Portuguese, who was a Spanish ally. And then he started taking Spanish ships, and they were like, oh, okay. So now nobody likes you. All right. And then he, I guess, he hung out in the Americas. He hung out in Florida and he hung out in Louisiana, and he was our ancestor. What it was is he was with Pizarro, and I guess after the conquest of the Incans, he decided to go rogue, and him and a band of Spaniards decided to do what they did. But he was my great grandfather's, I guess, grandfather or something. I don't remember the whole story. And so they had a picture of him. It was an oil painting that was very old. And I know because I got the hell beat out of me because the picture broke. When we decided to go and hide it in the closet, part of the wood came off. And I was like, oh, that's not good, And then they were like, well, who did this? Because the next day the picture's hanging like this and the part of the wood is gone. And there was this big spot on the wall, like it had been there forever. That house was falling apart even when I was a kid. And they were like, who did this? Well, I was pretty honest as a kid. And even I said, okay, I did it. I took the full wrath. And I got ass beating. My Theo Paul beat the hell out of me. I got his middle name. And he said, that's your ancestor, pendejo. And he just beat the crap out of me. And I was like, I don't think I'm related to that guy. Yes, you are. I'm like, okay, all right. So that's really the only one I know of that has any notoriety. Now, my grandfather's grandfather fought in the Civil War for the South, along with 4 of his brothers. And that's about all I really know that I can think of. I don't really have any. Now, I know going back onto the Cossack side, we found out that they really are just Northern Europeans, Vikings, that came into that region and killed all the Slavs around there and took it over and just said, we like this place, it's ours. And then they interbred with Boyer Germanic people. And then they set up like their own little fiefdom. They kicked out all the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Polish people and just made their own little kingdom. But they're violent as hell. And then the Comanches, they didn't have any written language. The Nermina people, they were called the Comancia by the Spaniards. They were not. They didn't call themselves that. They only did that when they dealt with the Tejanos or the Mexicans or the Anglos. But they didn't call themselves that. And so they were pretty tough and very hardy people. My great grandmother was a very tough woman. She lived, like I said, to be like 104, 100 something. My mother could tell you more, but she's passed away. But yeah, that was for me. I don't know. Who do you have in your history, Gaetano?
Oh, well, one of them is great uncle or great great uncle John Bassalone, the famous Marine Corps soldier. He died in war on his second tour and got the Medal of Honor, and it's what they based a lot of war heroes off of in reality and fiction. But the whole Pacific series on HBO is about him.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of them. And then there's some famous gangsters during Prohibition.
Wow.
And then a famous tailor. One of the things he did was Mamie Eisenhower's inaugural dress. A lot of interesting people, a whole collection, not just one type, but war heroes, gangsters, doctors, interesting people that I found so far. And I've been able to get newspaper articles and read stories and put things together. It's such an interesting thing.
Now, Villa's Angel says something interesting here. So it says Mexicans are Mexica. Yeah, they call themselves Mexica, not Azteca. Yeah, because the Aztecs were completely wiped out. And what was left of them, they were interbred because the Indios around them did not like them because they had tried to basically genocide all their neighbors. And so it's funny how Mexico is a huge country, but the Mexicans over here love to identify with Aztlan and Azteca. And I'm always like, why would you choose that one particular brand? I mean, I had a friend who was a Yaqui Indian. His brothers, his mother, I didn't know their dad, but I knew their mother and I knew them, and they were Yaqui. And he would always be like, I'm Azteca. And his mom would be like, no, you're not. We're Yaqui. And I was like, why do you, his name was Jose. And I was like, Jose, why do you always want to be identified with those people? It was because of the blood and, whatever. And yes, their reign was marked with blood and splendor, but it all came to an end because, you're doing some really evil stuff. And I don't care what anybody says. They go, oh, it's all propaganda. Really? Because Anthony's ex-girlfriend from Mexico City and her dad used to be a city planner, and an entire building fell through onto like 40,000 skeletons.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that it's all propaganda. Bullshit. That's people. That's propaganda right there trying to say that it's propaganda. So, and it's funny because Livrati is her last name. Well, she's married now, but and they were Italian descended people, but they lived in Mexico. And a lot of people don't realize that. I have a friend who's from Mexico, but he's Filipino. And he lived in Mexico. His family was from Mexico. I know Italians down there. Canelo.
Tons of Argentinians in my
Argentinians, yes. Well, after the war, a lot of the fashionistas, they went there. That's what they did, and they set up shop there. People don't realize this. The war that happened in Italy, they were like, oh, they jumped sides, whatever. Yeah, that's because all the fascists had left. They left before the war was over. And there's a whole thing about that too. Like it's really weird when you get into Eichmann and when he was on trial in Israel and he was saying some very outlandish things like, why am I on trial and not Hitler? They're like, well, we don't have Hitler here. He's like, you know where he's at? He's in Argentina. Why don't you go get him? And they're like, well, we're not worried about him. We're going to pretend like he doesn't exist. And he said, hey, you stopped me in Gibraltar with the Spanish authorities and y'all let me go. Why is that? You had Mengele, you let him go. Why come and get me now? It was propaganda. The Holocaust was orchestrated by the same people. They needed numbers so they could do this. And I'm telling you, they murdered these people. The rich ones murdered the poor people. Same thing happened in the Holodomor. The Armenian genocide. There were actually Armenians that were involved, and they don't want to hear it. They don't like when you say this, but they helped the Turkish authorities because after that, they were able to get their own country. I mean, there's a lot of rich feeding on the poor. It happens all the time, and that's.
I mean, we paid witness to it in the last several years alone. That history was being forged the way they wanted it, and we're sitting here saying, no, that's not how it's happening. We're witnessing this, and this is how you're going to write it down. I have a feeling that's happened throughout history.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
have you guys seen that clip of Putin? I put it on my Facebook, and it's crazy, dude. He's speaking in Russian. They're translating it, and he says these elites in the West have had a belly full of human flesh. He's like, and they have fed on the blood of their people. Like he's talking about this. He goes, but the vampire ball is coming to an end. And he says the word vampire, like he says it. He calls them vampires. He has said this on more than one occasion, folks. Now, I have a couple friends who speak Russian. The most notable, of course, is Eric Konevsky. He's my friend, Russian gangster. He's a prankster. That dude's always doing wild shit. And he's crazy. He's got a big channel or whatever. He's a good friend of mine. But I have several friends that speak fluent Russian, and they have said, hey, man, this guy, I don't speak Russian. I speak several languages. That's not one of them. It's a Cyrillic language. It's very hard. But he said that he's called the West satanic vampires. He's called them pedos. He has sat there and he has said it over and over again. He says the West is run by Satanists who drink human blood and eat human flesh.
unfortunately, there's too many things that point in that direction to
Mhm.
confirm that. And that's the scariest part. It's like, wow. But the promising thing is that it seems like there's some light being shined on them right now, and they're scared. You have to, I guess we just have to trust this change that's happening a little bit. You know, what other hope do we have?
So, looking at the vampire thing for a moment here, let me ask you this. I know when I was talking about it toward the beginning of the show, before Gaetano came on, Monica, when I was telling you about werewolves and vampires, and you're kind of smiling, like you're like, I would have been the same way at one point. Knowing what I know now, I think it's a real thing.
Oh, I don't
Before-
doubt it.
But what are your thoughts though on that? These people that say that they are, or they've practiced it.
I believe it. I mean, there's sanguinarians for sure, but people that are truly like, I need this blood to survive, like a true creature. I call it a creature, not a person. A true creature, vampire. They're out there. I don't think they're as common. I think that energy vampires are more common than a sanguinarian vampire, but I do think that they are out there. And I don't doubt that there are people claiming to be that. Now, I don't want to be like, prove it, you know, but in the same turn, you know, there's people out there claiming to be a lot of things they're not.
Yeah.
You know, how do you differentiate a story from an actual person or creature roaming around?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, my question is, why do they have to, and this isn't rhetorical, but why do they have to hide? Why is it that they have to hide? If revealed, because there's more of us than there are of them?
I would think that the answer to that would be pretty simple. You know, if you look back at the witch trials, the werewolf trials of France, look at the vampire, all the different times in history. I think that really made them think, hey, there's a story called the Austrian vampire, where when the Austro-Hungarian Empire actually ended up inheriting Serbia, the Serbian province, which actually it encompassed part of Kosovo, part of Croatia at that time, maybe a little bit of northern Macedonia. But when they inherited it, the Habsburg Empire was like, we need to send emissaries to all these new provinces. They had defeated the Turks, the Ottomans in open combat. They had sparred with them for decades, centuries even. And eventually they got the upper hand. The Ottomans were on the decline or whatever. And then ultimately in World War I, they were just completely, they were done, sacrificing their lands, giving up the Levant. I believe that those stories were correct and that they did encounter multiple cases of vampirism. And that's going to be in my book. So I'm not going to tell that story, but I wrote it in the book. And I believe that these people had encountered true vampirism. And I believe that these beings existed. And when you're talking about an age of darkness where people just, from one village to the next, that's as far as the news went, right? Did you hear what happened to Farmer John? Oh, his daughter was killed by a vampire. Oh, that sucks. Well, back to milking my cow because there's not shit I can do about it. Nowadays, though, and there are still people like that kit you have there, Chris. There are still people who will go out and stake an MFer who does because they believe, and I've talked to these people too. Have one that wanted to come on the show, but I don't know if I could bring him on. It's a little much. But he really believes that he's doing God's work. He's kind of wound up. Now I've talked to people who believe in. Now I own silver bullets. So what? I mean, it's just I have them. I was sent them at one point. Somebody they didn't send them to me. They gave them to me. They dropped them off somewhere, and they said you're going to need these. Okay, it was first on Dogman Encounters. I'm like, okay, and so I've had them ever since. I've been given a lot of objects to help me in my quests for whatever. But I'm not a vampire or werewolf hunter, but they do exist. there were a couple guys that were on DER talking about how them and their uncles trapped and killed Rougarou, a type of werewolf. These people actually believe they're doing this. Now, are they really doing this? I don't know, but they sound very legit. I used to work out with a guy. Like I said, there was one that told us a vampire story, but there was another guy who claimed that he had once killed a vampire. And it was a girl whose ex-boyfriend was trying to break in through the window. And I was like, well, how do you know this guy wasn't just breaking into the window? This is what he told us. And this was years ago, right? He said, no, dude, she lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex. And this guy was coming in through the window. Like he was halfway in, halfway out. His legs were off the ground. He was doing like a Salem's Lot, you know. We used to work out with him, and he never brought it up again, and neither did I, because I was just like, that's weird as hell. And I just always thought, so we started calling him John the Vampire Guy because we didn't know, we just teasingly called him that. But years later, I ran into him at the club when I used to run a nightclub, and he retold me and a bunch of my bouncers that story. And get this. They called the police. When the police came, all they found was like blood all over the room and down the side of the whatever, because he popped like a balloon. That's what he said. Now, he did show us a police report. I mean, but so what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess him and his girlfriend could have taken blood and thrown it all over the room and said, hey, then called the police on themselves and then said, hey, and then they checked it and it's a person's blood, but it didn't match anybody that they knew. So what? I mean, is that how they die? I don't know. I've had people tell me different stories. It depends on the vampire. There was a Portuguese story that I got of some electricians. I believe they were electricians. They were working in an apartment complex, and there was this Nosferatu-looking thing behind a guy, you know, and there was all this weird, you know, was it a vampire? I mean, who knows? I don't know. I mean, that story should be in the book too. There's a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of stories, but a lot of people, especially on YouTube and these different channels, they don't want to touch it because it sounds goofy. And in fact, one of my colleagues, he says, I don't really like it talking about it. He had a guy he interviewed. He goes, but it's kind of campy. It's kind of horror fiction-y. And I said, yeah, it is. But what if it's real?
Well, I mean, again, these are based on certain regions of the world that truly believed in these things. I mean, Nosferatu is something that people truly believed were real, or they were real back then. You know, I don't know, because I think I've encountered some odd spirits inhabiting human bodies for sure. You know, evil, if you will call it evil, for sure, because it just doesn't feel like there's a person there. But isn't that what Jeffrey Dahmer is, or Richard Ramirez, or any of these guys? Like, they are vampires. They are cannibals. They're pure evil incarnate in the flesh of a human being.
Do you think that's what a vampire is? Is just a serial killer?
Well, some of the werewolf legends suggest that they were like, oh no, these were the early serial killers. Well, I think that's people trying to rationalize, saying, well, we had this, but they describe these people as changing, you know. And again, this gentleman contacted me last week, and he just left me messages today on Facebook Messenger, and it's like, man, I kind of want to talk to him further about this and just hear his story. I just, you know, I don't like getting too close to anybody like this.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of my conundrum now, because I've gone so far and I know so much about it now that you can't really go backwards.
Yeah.
I just kind of look at it as Cortez and burning the ships. You make your choice. You know what that is, burning the ships? It's when Cortez landed on the Tabascan coast, and he said he had some soldiers that were kind of grumbling, we want to go back to Cuba. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to march into this place, and we're going to either conquer or we're going to die. And, you know, he had spies that had told him of a great kingdom that was full of gold. That was Azteca, you know. And so he burned the ships.
Last time I burned the ships, I got bit, and it followed me back, you know.
Yeah.
So now I'm observing all of this carefully because it took years to get out of that situation. So,
Doesn't always work, but sometimes you have to do it when you make a decision in
yeah.
business in particular. I have that.
No, I mean, I hear people talking about boots on the ground. I was in deep certain situations. You know, I
Yeah,
died.
a lot of those people that boots on
Yeah.
the ground are full of shit.
I think walk the woods too, you know, but I'm just saying, like, I've also been part of some really crazy stuff and for a long period of time. I mean, I moved to places where it was, you know, and I got bit, man. You know, like you have to be careful, as you know. You have just to be very careful.
Yeah. So in closing here, I'm fixing to wrap this up. I got to go do my job. What do you think, Monica? What are your thoughts?
In
Closing
general,
it up here. Just in general.
I got a lot of thoughts to throw at you.
Do it. Do it.
So, okay, so in the vampire thing, I do believe they exist, obviously. I believe, lycanthropy, and it's so silly to me to say I believe in a vampire and I don't believe in a werewolf, right? Or I just have a harder time believing that somebody can actually change their anatomy into something else. I can reconstruct bone to your jaw elongates, your nose would elongate, right? Your legs bend backward or whatever. It's difficult for me to go down that path. But I've seen things, right? And my Dogman encounter, it looked like a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And there was absolutely no reason for this thing to be there. It was in the middle of a major city. And where did it come from? I mean, it's not like he's walking down the tollway in the middle of rush hour traffic. I mean, where is this thing most of the time? You don't hear, I would think if it was something common in the area, you'd hear more stories about it. People, somebody will start talking, even though I kept my mouth shut for a long time. Not everybody's me. And that makes me think, well, maybe these things are possible just because I can't explain where that thing came from. Was it somebody that shapeshifts? Was it? I don't know. So why not? I'm willing to believe in a creature that drinks blood to survive, but I'm not willing to take into consideration somebody can shapeshift. I don't know. I bottom line, I don't know what they are. But I keep my mind open and the possibilities of it, and when stories come around, I know you've got to be careful, but I want to hear the stories. I wasn't there to experience it. I want to hear somebody else's story 100%.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear the stories. I just don't want to go in the same place as them, which I've done. Like I lived in the same town as a certain group, and it really bit me, and it wasn't fun.
Right. Well, I mean, I understand keeping,
Yeah.
the distance there and
I
keeping
moved there for the purposes of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's elemental magic. It's easy to do. I don't think it is.
Well, I can tell you this. I don't believe that the change happens the way it's not American Werewolf in London, from what I'm told, and it happens pretty quickly. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. And I've interviewed lots of people who've seen what they think are people in kind of midway. The late J.C. Johnson, for example, he talked a lot about it and the werewolf, phenomena. You have people who I believe can do this, and they're a conduit for whatever. And I believe that they're kind of marked from the time that they're born, and then they're sought out. And this is what I've been told. And I do believe that they can do these things. I do. I really do. And I think that there's a really heavy price to pay for them getting caught, because if you're kind of caught flat-footed, the other ones that know about you probably would put an end to you because they don't want to be discovered and they want to keep doing what they're doing and keep it down on the down low. The devil's greatest trick, we all know, he convinced people he didn't exist. Well, that's kind of what this is. They've convinced everybody that they're not real. And that's the good thing for them. Good for them, bad for us, because they're predators that live amongst us.
Mm-hmm.
It could go back to, like I said, an alien intervention of some type or interdimensional intervention where they they've done genetic tampering and made whatever. I mean, what the hell is
I mean, I'll buy that. Yeah.
human mixed with a giant vampire bat? Maybe going back to a time when the Earth's gravity was different. You look at these beings and you see them as being blood-sucking, what do you call them, parasites, because they're overtaken by a parasite. That's what we've been told. And there is this black goo element that we don't really know a lot about. I'm sure the military and the government does. But I think that if these vampires and werewolves really do exist, they have a vested interest in making you believe that they don't, because then it's easier to prey upon you.
Mm-hmm.
Being in places where there are large homeless populations too, I think is a big bonus for them, because they can prey on people and whatever. Here in Austin, there was a case where a guy was found killed. He was decapitated, hung upside down, and exsanguinated.
Ugh.
They blamed his roommate. His roommate it was weird. His roommate claimed that he had no memory of doing it. He was like, I don't remember this, but I had to have, but I don't remember it. Most recently, there was a goat in Florida. I don't know if you know about this, Chris, that was found with its head removed, blood taken out, and completely drained of its blood. And they have the sound of it being executed, but not, they don't have the video footage.
Right.
They're able to stop cameras and things too.
When I was a kid in the woods in New York, we were walking around and we found one of those and symbols drawn in blood and a goat hung upside down. It was nuts. We found that in the woods. And this is around the same town that if you look, it's out of print now, but it was a very famous book called Say You Love Satan. That murder happened when I was 10 years old in my hometown. And it freaked everybody out, So weird stuff. I grew up around weird stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and somebody just said, Abracadabra says, it's hard for me because I believe that sometimes it's satanic rituals, but sometimes it's vampiric for sure. Yes, and that is the thing. You're dealing with the same thing. They're not really two different things. Vampiric and satanic go hand in hand, but like I said, satanic is not necessarily, there's not just one Satan. There's a whole slew of them, because that's a title, and it's a race of beings called the Shaitan, or Shaitan, depending on how you say it, or you spell it. These beings that are vampiric, of course, they feed on human flesh and the energy, life force of humans. When you stop and you look at these cases, you get case after case after case of these creatures, whatever you want to call them, beings. They do the most horrific, horrible things. And then when the person tells somebody, they get laughed at, which is a double slap in the face, because they're like, I witnessed this. And then they're like, no, you didn't. Ha. That's in TVs and movies and stuff. So look at the cloaking thing, for example. Why do so many people see cloaking with these beings, with Bigfoot, Dogman? And then there is this whole, whatever the hell it is, that these beings do, where they look like they're moving really, really fast, and they're kind of like, and I mean, this is obviously not of a natural order. I mean, they're defying the laws of physics as we know it, because the laws of physics apply to us, not necessarily to them.
People tend to believe sometimes, prominent people in society. So Billy Corgan, right? At least at one time, he was well-respected musician, vocalist of his band, Smashing Pumpkins. He's told the story several times that he saw someone shapeshift, and dead serious when he tells that story. And it doesn't seem to be ashamed to tell it now. Probably held it in for quite some time. So you could go find that. He tells it on the Howard Stern show, not in detail. And then he tells it again on another, maybe Joe Rogan. And I believe him. I believe at least he saw as he
Billy
saw.
Corgan's story is very telling.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed how when we do a show, okay, get this is my opinion, and if I talk about werewolves or vampires, there's no disclaimer on there, because it's a mythical fake being that people don't believe in. They know that. But the reptilian thing, when we say we're talking about reptilians, they always put this thing on there. A reptilian is a fictional character, blah 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 blah, and they make sure that they put it on all of my episodes. Go back and look. Every time I say the word reptilian on there, they 100% they do it. They say it every time. That it is a fictional. They want you to know it's fictional. Don't believe it. It's not real. And it really bothers me because it's like, dude, okay. I know that most people are not going to they don't give a crap about that. But it's like they have this fear of you believing it. They think they got you with the werewolf vampire. They're not going to believe in those. Okay. So they can operate and do what they do, and keep doing as Putin says, the vampire.
If you believe in reptilians, you should open your mind to the fact there might be vampires and werewolves.
Yeah.
It's just, I find it to be quite ridiculous that you would say, I believe in shape-shifting humanoid reptilians, but certainly not those werewolf things. It's like,
yeah,
you're serious, right?
Yeah. And I mean, what you saw, Monica, what we need to do, Monica, is you haven't been on the podcast. Now, the podcast gets even more listeners than the YouTube because we're on all these different platforms. You need to tell your encounters on the podcast. We need to record and then have your story out there because then the people that are so stubborn and they won't leave Apple or what else are they, Anthony? Spotify. Young people. First thing they do, are you on Spotify? Okay. Oh, really? Oh, I don't like you. And that's the first thing they do. Oh, you're on YouTube.
That's not a real podcast. What?
That's for old people. That's for old people got to die.
No, old people is Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook and YouTube.
Nobody's on Facebook under the age of like 30 anymore.
Yeah. And you talk about these reptilians and these dogmen, these vampires, these whatever. And I tell people this. You laugh, you don't believe it until it happens to you. And then when it happens to you, then you have to come to the realization that, holy hell, what the hell did I just see? Because you saw something that looked like a freaking werewolf. So did I. I didn't know what the hell a dog man was. It was years later. Let's see, how many years later was it until I heard that term? It was like 16 years later, 15 years later. And then I heard... I went on the dog, but it was probably a couple of years before that I heard. So I guess 13 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell a dog man was. I'd never heard of it. We were at the library looking up books about werewolves. Then my brother gets out of the army and he's like, hey, up in Michigan, they call this thing the dog man. Why don't we look into that? And I was like, we started laughing. Me and my friend were like, what the hell is a dog man? Like, what? This doesn't look like a dog man. Like it looks like a werewolf, But that name dog man stuck. And so we are. So yeah, I do believe that. What is that?
Oh, I have those.
Oh, that's those old books from Timeline.
I have those.
Those are from the 80s. Those were the scariest damn commercials, dude.
Some great
right?
stuff. These are fantastic, these books. I guess it goes into all the cultures that talk about shape-shifting and transformations, including werewolf rituals and skinwalkers and all that jazz.
Yeah, and skinwalkers.
Yeah, everything is...
People are totally okay with skinwalker, but then they're like, I don't believe in werewolves, but I believe in a skinwalker. What's the difference?
That's right. If you're going to believe in one of these crazy things, then... And I only say... I say crazy because we're taught to keep this all in fiction, but then, we learn that there are cultures that weren't distracted by all of this technology that really, and they were intelligent and they believed in this stuff. So their senses were heightened because it wasn't muddied by everything that we have right now. Mm-hmm. And when they say they saw something, I would trust that they saw what was written down.
Here's my take on this, and this is going to sound kind of funny. I don't know, and it might just sound like I'm trying to make excuses for whatever, not having the answers, because I don't have all the answers. But to me, all dogmen are werewolves, and all werewolves are dogmen. And I don't mean they're all the same. I mean, one is different from the next, and different from the next, different from the next. I'm not the same as you, Chris, or Monica. I'm not the same. We're all different.
Of course.
These beings are all different. They do different things. There's different types. There's different species, whatever. And I believe that there are big covens of these things, and I believe there are hives of these things, whether they're reptilians, And I've heard that the viril are divided into two different subtypes. There is a straight up reptilian viril, and then there's a vampiric viril. It's really bizarre when you go down that rabbit hole, because these things they've been in contact with one another. One of the things I asked a couple of these lycanthropic people, I was like, what happens when you encounter one of these others from another? It's like, well, sometimes we'll fight. Sometimes we just ignore each other. It's like two predators. You just kind of circle each other, and you go your way, they go theirs. But sometimes it's not that way. It depends upon how messed up they are in their head. It depends on what the mood is.
Tonight about he hunts, and I wanted to ask him, well, what are you hunting for?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, there's a guy he's a comedic guy that does Instagram called Domo Draper. And he's come out and said, I'm a vampire, and showed a picture of himself when he was from the 1800s. And he's done a whole big old thing about it, and people keep bringing it up, and he keeps trying to go back to the comedy, but he's like, dude, I've always just wanted to be an actor. He's like, but I'm dead serious. I really am a vampire. And it's crazy. Like, he's got this whole thing going. But now, knowing what I know, I'm like, I don't know what to believe with people when they say this, because I don't know. I've seen people do some weird stuff. And okay, so there's a guy that comes on our channel. He was in the chat earlier. I don't want to put him on the spot, because I don't know if I'll tell his story eventually, but he was here in Austin, and him and his friends saw a guy fly up in the air. Just, fly up in the air. He didn't come back. That happened to an ex-girlfriend of mine out.
That's been seen before.
Yeah. It's not unheard of. And in all these vampire stories that I posted one on my Facebook the other day from New Orleans, people getting into cabs and being attacked and stuff.
And it's so strange that you can have all of these abilities in here. Wait till you I'm going to meet you in there.
The Matrix and the Matrix.
You will. Yeah.
So, Monica, we need to set up a time to record, you and I.
Okay.
We need to go over your experiences, and then it's probably going to be a couple of hours at least, or whatever. But anyways, that's what we need to do. We need to get that going. But I got to run, folks. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. You guys want to participate? The green, anybody who's in green, let me know that you have not won. First come, first serve. So you guys, if you see somebody there, Chris or Monica, pick them.
Oh, I can't see what you're seeing.
You can't say it.
Okay.
Use your phone. Use the force.
So they need to say they haven't won. They're just talking.
They're just talking.
Yeah.
This is it's like herding cats at the end. They're like trying to give you merchandise. Come on now.
Okay, so Big Green 306.
There you go, Big Green. So Big Green, send me your address, your shirt size, and we'll send you. And Joe Breezy says, I'm in green. No, you're not, Joe. But Joe, you can stop by the studio anytime and pick up whatever you want. You don't need to do all that.
I need to come down to Austin and hang out with you guys.
You do. You need to come down to Austin, and we need to go on. What we need to do, and Chris, you too, y'all come, and we're going to take you on location to these, and we could film it too, or we could put it on a live stream, and I'll take you to probably, what do we have? I'd say 30, 40 of them right there by where we live, locations. Yeah. Of where people have seen things. I'll take you to Black Bull Bridge. I'll take you to Hoxie Bridge. I'll take you to all these different places. Werewolf Church. There's a lot of places.
Down for Werewolf Church.
Yeah, I could take you guys. And
that was a scene from Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
We'll take our silver bullets. They don't tumble correctly. Now, I did shoot one day, and it was a very expensive shot. But it doesn't tumble worth a shit. I'm like, that is not.
They're terrible. That's why there are no real silver. You need to put it into buckshot and get it out that way.
I have that too. You're exactly right.
I have silver bullets. I have 1 ounce silver bullets.
Yeah, that's what me and my wife were talking about that, and she said the same thing. She was just like, "Yeah, just put a shotgun shell." I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's how we need to do it. So, anybody else who hasn't won? Otherwise, we're gonna run.
Let's see.
Silver is too soft. Yeah, It is soft.
It
But
is.
once it enters the body, though, it don't matter. It does the body.
You know what you do? You take a hollow tip and you get some colloidal silver, put it in there, and put some wax on the tip, and there you go.
Yeah, there you go. How does Monica know this, Chris? Inquiring minds want to know. That's
Monica thinks about those things at night while she's
Wow.
Read every single one
like-
of these.
what'd you say, Chris?
She read every single one of these.
You read those
Three
books?
movies.
Mhm.
Oh, I have such a big collection over here.
Time Life. I remember how the commercial was. A man tries to board a plane in Chicago.
For these
crosses. And then the
I can
plane
hear
goes,
the voice,
"You know what I'm
too.
talking about?" And then you're
Yeah.
scared. You're like as a kid going, whoa, what the hell is this? This is creepy.
You remember those?
Do what?
My favorite. This
Oh,
was the-
yeah.
I think I have
remember
a
the
few of
commercial to
those.
those too. They're like
Yeah.
in the darkness, nails, teeth clicked, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, whoa, okay.
Vincent
Yeah.
Price.
Vampires, werewolves, all that stuff.
I'll tell you, anybody who lives in Dallas, if you go to the half price books on Northwest Highway, they've got tons of those.
Really?
Yeah.
If you're interested in those, you can pick them up there.
Well, I'm not driving all the way to Dallas for that. Go
I
pick
said
them up.
anybody in the Dallas area.
You're in the Dallas area. Pick them up for me and send them to me. Or give them to Starscream, and next time he comes down here, he'll hand them.
He doesn't talk to me. He needs to freaking talk to me.
Starscream doesn't talk to you?
Mm-mm.
He goes through periods, though, where he kind of withdraws. You know,
I'm so offended because we had good conversations at the conference, and then it's like he doesn't even know who I am.
To him.
I feel so
Reach out to
offended.
I mean, I'll send you his information. You can talk to him. He's got some weird stuff too. He's got a weird what may or may not be a vampire encounter that we've talked about over the years. He doesn't know what it is. I mean, there's been a lot of weird stuff that's happened, to me and my friends. But working downtown, there used to be a guy that would come down there all the time claiming he was a vampire. I mean, who knows? He was a weird dude, looked like a ghoul.
Those are the best.
Yeah. Well, anyways, nobody else is coming forward because I got to run. It's 1:12 a.m. over here in Central Texas, and it is below freezing, and I got to get going.
Get
Thank
out there
you
and
to
skate to work.
the great and handsome Chris Garetano and the most beautiful and very intelligent Monica Rawlins. Thank you guys, and of course to the unhygienic Anthony and the the unhygienic me or whatever.
Stinky
these people,
boy.
I'm a stinky guy, and so is he. Apparently, people say the nicest things about us, don't they?
They don't.
It's wonderful.
Wonderful.
It's a wonderful life, I tell you. No, they're just jealous. I mean, it's jealousy.
It is.
So, yeah, and they're just I'm not like rich and I'm not famous, but I'm living the dream. I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying.
If you're happy with your life, you are living the dream.
I'm happy.
If you're happy with who you are and you're happy with your life.
See that Salem nemesis?
Everybody else.
Chris is handsome too. There you go. You're handsome.
Is
Yeah.
Chris?
Better watch it, Chris. I've been known to hang out at the Black Bull, or what is it called? The Iron Bear.
Yeah.
Never set foot in that place, but according to my detractors, I'm in there dancing.
We can create a bar setting where we're going to have this conversation.
There you go.
You're going to have to name the room. You have to give
The name of the room.
Yeah, there you
think-
go.
I
We
think
can have the
with
VR Iron Bear.
Because I'm
Yeah.
a big burly guy. They think I go up to smaller guys. I'm like, hey, you want to wrestle? Let's tickle.
Call it the Iron
Tickle
Werewolf.
party.
Hey, boy, you want to be my
Iron Werewolf.
The Iron Werewolf.
The Iron Werewolf. There you go.
Our first experimental room.
My hands
There
are
we go.
for steel. I'm gonna grip you.
Yeah, I'm going to go buy those goggles. I'm not even kidding now.
Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot, Chris. And I got something else to buy.
You're
Another
going to
$500 down the tube.
And I got to buy one for Nelly too.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm using it. She's not. She's going to want to use it. So now I got to buy one for her too.
But I think you can get some deals. Like maybe there's like a buy one get one half price thing. You check it out, but it's worth it. It's
well, then I
really
need to do that. Look, Joe Breeze. About Time Club. Yes. I know exactly what that is. Dude, I used to have a friend years ago, not me, okay, but I had a friend who sold bad things in there. And About Time, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be a gay biker kind of, that was I think that was the thing, because I used to see bikes out, so I've never been inside of it, but it was the gay biker clubs. He's laughing because we had a friend who was a big burly Italian dude, man, and he goes, dude, that's the place where you go. You could sell your stuff. I'm like, geez, Louise, dude. I was like, why? And I don't care what you're selling. I'm not going in that place. I mean, no, to each their own, but I was like, you could do the same thing on 6th Street. You don't need to go there to do it. Whatever. But it was, yeah, I know it's so breezy. Because in Austin, that it used to be only like 100,000 people in this town. When I first moved here, there was probably 150,000, maybe 200,000 at the most. Now there's like over 1 million in just Austin, and there's like 3 million in the area, whatever. But there were only like certain places that were certain themes of bars or clubs, and if they weren't down on 6th Street, 6th Street was always like it was, and I'm not going to say it was normal. It was always
been there in so many years.
Yeah, but it was rough. It was all gangster down on 6th Street. Every club down there, and you knew some of them bars. Nobody ever went into them. You never saw anybody. They were open for 2 decades, and there was never a customer in there. You're like, okay, what is this place doing? Like, okay,
for something, yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously Dirty Six. There you go, Dirty Sixth. Yeah, I hadn't heard that name "Bout Time" in a long time, dude. But I guess everybody needs their place to party. I remember when I worked at the parking garage, there was a one for the ladies that liked ladies, and it was called Rainbow Cattle Company. And that was the first time I ever had a woman yell and scream at me and tell me to call her sir. And she was very effeminate. But her friend, who I thought was a guy, because she looked like a guy, she was just being quiet looking at me like, I was like, I'm not going to call you a sir. I mean, I'll call him a sir. And she's like, that's my date. She's a woman. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. And so I called her ma'am, and then she's like, I don't care what you call me. But the other one was all drunk, and she took off her heels and was like trying to swing them at me, and her friends were grabbing her. And I was like, what in the hell? So that was my first encounter with people who were, you better use certain types of pronouns. And
the lady bar was called the Rainbow Cattle Company. Like,
yeah. It was my first night at that particular parking garage, working security there. So the guy I worked with was this crazy black dude named Jerry. And he goes, man, now you know what I've been going through. I've been working here for 4 years, man. He goes, now you know. He goes, now if you see these women, just call them them. Like, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Of course, it's like, back in like 2003 or something, But that's when it started. Like you couldn't say certain pronouns or names or whatever. And I don't give a shit. I don't give a damn. Call me or don't call me. Like, why is that an issue? That's the hill you want to die on. There's so many other issues out there to fight about. And I remember when they were like, should we allow gay marriage? And I'm like, who cares? It's like, I don't give a crap. I care about certain issues, and that ain't one of them. I don't give a damn about that, dude. So whatever, dude. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. If you keep your mouth shut and whatever, and just do your deal, they're gonna say something. If you say something, they're gonna say something. And the bottom line is this: the bigger you get, the more people are gonna try to. But really and truly, all you got to do is take a leak on them. Okay, you're way up there in the tree. Okay, you're up in the tree. They're down there looking up at you. Piss on them.
What if they like it?
Well, then I think they need to go to
never get rid of them.
They need to go to Bout Time or the Iron Bull or whatever the hell. That's where
call that a golden shower.
They need to go down there to those places and enjoy their fun or whatever. But there's a bunch of weirdos too that are straight doing it too down on 6th Street. There's some weird people. Weird people, man. I mean, there was a guy. Oh God, here's a weird one. Before we go. There was a guy at my friend's bar who used to bring a doll in with him all the time, and he would sit it down next to him, and he would dress like a sailor, like Cracker Jack sailor, And I always thought it was just like a gimmick, and I would, oh, okay, whatever. We call him Sailor Jack. That was our nickname for him. And he used to go down to my friend's club down there on the corner of Wiley's. And I was like in there one day, and my friend, his name was Chris. Well, that was his real name, but he was Iranian, but we called him Chris Persian. And he introduced me to the guy, and he's like, well, that's rude. Like, and I was like, kind of smiling. I've been drinking. And I was like, what's rude? What are you talking about? And he's like, my wife is right here. Her name is Wendy, and you totally ignored her. And I thought this guy was putting me on. I was like, okay, hey, Wendy, whatever. He goes, looking at me with this straight face. I'm waiting for him to kind of laugh because he was laughing and joking with everybody earlier. My friend Joe Money was the bartender. So I looked at Joe Money and I was like, look, Joe Breezy's like, I remember that dude. Yeah, remember the wizard? There was another guy. Me and Breezy could talk about this all night. And then so there was a wizard down there. And he was always like, I'm selling you. I know. And he was like always jumping around, and then he would try to sell you flowers. I'm like, get away from me. So this guy with the doll, it was like a Raggedy Andy looking Raggedy Ann doll that he kind of put a plastic face on or something. And I was like, are you serious, dude? And my brother was just like, just shake its hand. And I'm like, I look at my brother and I'm like, I'm not shaking that thing's hand. It looks like Annabelle or some shit. I'm not, Robert the doll. I don't know what kind of, whatever crime against humanity this doll's committed. I'm not touching. And so I was just like, yeah, okay, dude, whatever. And then that guy got up and was following me around. Like I finally went up to the owner and I said, hey man, throw this guy out or something. He's got a doll. And he's like, oh, the guy spends a lot of money here, like $200 a night. I'm like, so okay, fine. Let me leave because this dude won't stop harassing me. And so finally I just was nice for the sake of the peace of the bar. I went up and I bought Wendy a freaking drink. And I said, okay, I'll buy you a drink. I'm sorry, Wendy. I shouldn't have been rude to you. And then he's like, that's better. Okay, now we're friends. And I'm like, yeah, okay, go.
Yeah.
I just walked away from the guy. So after that, I would see him. I would just nod and never speak to him. And next door one day, there was what we call a little person. His name was Jason. He worked the door there. And he got mad because that dude wanted to bring the doll in. And he was like, yeah, well, dude, we've had some issues lately, whatever. There's just been, some problems. So he told him, no, you're not going to bring the doll in. And the guy got freaking pissed. So he tried to kick Jason. And I saw him beat the hell out of that dude and then throw his doll into the street. Because he called him a midget. He's like, you little midget. And then he's like, oh, yeah. And so then I was like, wow. So you had a guy married to a doll fighting a midget. And it was right there on 6th Street. And it was nuts. And I'm like, dude, I got to quit hanging out down there, man. This is ridiculous. It's like a freaking circus, man. But that's, that's life in 6th Street. So it was good having you guys on. I'm really interested in that vampire kit you have, Chris. If you wanted to make me one of those, I would not object.
Yeah, I mean, right now I don't have the time, but I'd be happy to down the road.
Well, if you're a real friend, you'll make time for me. So that's all I can say about that.
I mean,
can you send me the schematics and I'll make
send me the graphs. What I got to do.
My schedule's pretty full at the moment, but maybe by Halloween I will.
Jeez, I got to wait 10 months to get. No, but for real though, give us. I mean, if you can, and it's up to you. Give us an ETA on your show. When will it be coming out? When do you think?
I'll have it finished by the end of March. Then it's going into a state where I really have to spend a couple of months or so truly planning my schedule for the rest of the year, which is going to conventions, film festivals, private screenings, how I'm going to market it, and when I'm going to release it. And that's time in itself. That's full time. And now I have 2 network projects, and I have another documentary project that I'm finishing up too. That's what I mean by I'm squeezed. So, but I will be traveling a lot this year. And one thing I would like to do is maybe have a private screening. We could have it in person for sure, just for alike people in these groups. They're welcome to come. Private screening, maybe in Austin, but also here too, because I know you guys are going to get this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Monica, we have to get that.
We do now.
Because Chris is not going to be our friend. He's going to be like, I'm in my head. Where are you guys?
No, but once we're in there together, you're gonna be like, oh, this is great. We have to do this all the time.
Yeah,
It'll be a weekly thing until you buy it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. He's gonna. I'm not gonna call Chris because he's just gonna be like, "Have you bought the headset?"
Oh, I'm gonna be talking you all
I can send you the God helmet if you'd rather be crazy for the rest of your life.
No, I have that in here too. It's over there.
Chris tried to send me that. And I was like, I'm good.
That's all right.
I'm all right. I want to be. Chris told me, he's like, I've never slept the same. I have weird dreams. I'm like,
want to use it?
He's like,
you're not selling it.
I'm like, no, good. No, thank you. You're braver than me, bro, for real. Because I don't think I could do it, man. I've got enough problems up there. I got to remember too many things.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I always had vivid dreams, but this is like clockwork. Every time I close
Oh
my
man.
eyes, I'm in a deep sleep almost
Does it
immediately.
help with your memory? Because I got to do a lot of memorization.
Well, from memory, I mean, I think the things that really help me, I take a variety of supplements,
Me too. Yeah.
but that helps for sure.
Yeah, because I got to remember things like the last time the Lions went to won the championship, 1957. I remember that. See, I have to have those useless things up in there. I could give you the whole history of all kinds of crap. But yeah, sometimes I guess I just need to like dump some things out. You know,
It could be.
I like hoard memories.
Yeah.
I'm not a hoarder in physical life, but I'm a hoarder with memories. I'm like I hoard things like. People are like, you remember that? And then I jog their memory about something like with Joe Breezy. He's like, I remember that dude. Yeah, it was a weird guy. But you don't forget being forced to apologize to a doll. It's kind of like and then every time I'd see him with that doll, I'd be like, I really wanted to just like throw a sidekick at it and knock its head off. But I was, yeah, whatever, dude. The guy's in love with the doll, whatever. It's 6th Street. Anywhere else, they just be like, but they're like, this is keep Alston weird. Like, yeah, you're doing a good job. It's pretty damn weird. But, okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for those that donated and pitched in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Sunday. Oh, look at that. That's a huge donation. Thank you for that. He says, I've done security for 7 years in California, and I know it's hard. It is. And I'm about to go do it now. Let me tell you something, though. There's nothing like trying to get an elderly woman to stop arguing and fighting with a pack of people from Venezuela. That was she was not stopping. They threw ice at me, and she was throwing ice back at them. And she was very animated, and me and Anthony finally got her to stop. I said, look, there's like 12 of them up there, and you're 70. Please stop throwing ice back. We will deal with this. But that was New Year's Eve. We didn't have any fireworks calls at all, did we?
No.
Nothing.
Which was weird.
Nothing. Just fights. Just fights. And then people in a swimming pool. And it was like 42 degrees. And we're like, you're not cold? They're like, nah. Oh, it's great. We're all high as hell. I'm like, yeah, shit. That's why you're all nude. Can you please get the hell out of swimming? And then they all ran into the fitness center. And we're like, no. We need to go away from the amenities, please. But yeah, that was our New Year's Eve. So thank you for that donation, Big Green. We appreciate that.
It's very generous of you.
Very generous of you. That's the biggest donation we've had in months, but we appreciate it. And we thank our guests. Thank you, Monica, for bringing Chris on. I didn't even, I've been thinking about Chris when you posted that thing the other day about your show, you're getting it wrapped up, whatever. And I'm really excited for that. And I was like, cool.
I can't wait to share it with you. You're all going to see it early. So
Great.
I want to
Very excited.
test group, so to speak. I want to have some test groups, and I definitely want to hear what you think after you see it. So
it's hear what I'm going to think, because I'm going to be very hard on you because I want you to do the best, and I'm jealous. I'm a nice guy. I'm just very petty. I'm just going to be like, what is this crap? What is this? What is this pile of crap?
What is that, man? I could do that.
I could do this crap. I could do this crap. Chris is like, what would you change about it? Everything. Start over from the.
I'm not going to ask you that, but I want to see your initial reactions to it. I think it's pretty epic. I mean, I kick my own ass every day, so
you do. Yeah, you can be hard on yourself, Chris, but that's a good thing. When Chris was about to die from the hurricane, he was like, "Man, I'm stupid for this," and I was like, "Yep." He's like, "I can't believe I'm living in Florida." I'm like, "Yeah, you're dumb, dude. That's not you." I'm over there like, whew, thank good I'm not Chris. I go inside and Nellie's like, what's wrong? I was like, thank God. I was like, bad news, good news. Bad news, Chris is going to die. That sucks. That really sucks. We have to come to terms with that. The good news is I'm not him.
Well, that's true, but hopefully not anything.
He's like, that's true. No, Chris, you're one of the greatest guys in this field, man.
Likewise. All of you, yeah.
I'm really glad you came to the conference. I met both of you in person at the conference. It's been awesome. We've been friends ever since. But you never know when I'm going to turn on you and just, I'm going to come at you. I'm coming for you. Don't do too good.
Come at me, bro. Come at me.
Don't do too good. I'll come at you with the sorcery and the mind control.
No conference this year?
Do what?
Any conference this year?
I've had so many, and this is no joke. I've had so many death threats and assassination threats that my wife's not going to be okay with that.
What about something? What about something interesting like a one-night event You can
with the
show-
VR helmet.
Well, maybe we could show a haunting we will go, and then you can have a whole panel of people that had haunting experiences.
And the virtual conference.
Yeah,
The
make it
virtual
one
conference,
night.
Monica. We're not going to get away until we buy the. Send me the link so Amazon and Monica, you and I, we can play friends on there together.
Medical-
Me,
We'll
you,
play
Nelly,
friends,
Anthony, we'll
'cause we're
figure
not.
it out. You know what? I don't trust things like that, so I volunteered. I'm going to use Maddie. Maddie will be her and Tony. Y'all put it on, see what happens. If your head melts, then we know this isn't a good thing.
I don't
If
think
you-
her
We could
neck's
do
gonna be
why
able
don't we
to take
do a
the weight
one
of
night
that thing.
only? Let's do a one night only screening somewhere, and
Okay.
then you can moderate the panel.
Yeah.
I don't really like moderating, but I'll be there.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've had the very first documentary I made 20 years ago premiered at the Alamo Draft House in Austin,
wow.
2 nights, and it was hosted by Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh,
And,
wow. Okay.
I'll try to arrange something like
That'd be
that
awesome.
in Austin. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, that would be incredible. I could go down there and talk to him and get it. We could get it done. I know a lot of people down here. I could get it done for you.
Yeah, I mean, we'll make it happen. It'll be worth having. I mean,
Get
it'll
it into South by Southwest, Chris.
Yeah.
Just get it in there.
And
if
I'll
I
be
get the
speaking
deadline.
at the Symposium of the Strange on the 29th. At the Magic Time Machine in San Antonio. That's the only appearance I'm making this year. I don't plan on, because I've been asked to do a lot of stuff, and I unfortunately have to turn it down. And sometimes people think I'm being a butthole. I'm not. I just can't, because I can't trust these people. They're insane. They're crazy. And so I just have to be. It was a shame because the conference was really awesome.
That was.
And I've been attacked every day. I mean, every day since that thing ended, I have done nothing but endure attack after attack. My family, and we've been threatened and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just so tired of it. And so I just, but you know what? I don't care. I mean, I personally don't give a crap. I've lived a good life. I mean, I'm fine, but I don't want my people to have to suffer for me, because my wife's like, what do I do if you're gone? And then that's the thing you got to think about. There's people that depend on you, that care about you. I have 24 people that work for me in one business, and 4 that work for me for the other, and 8 that work for me in this. I can't just go off and die. I mean, that's not an option, I got a lot of things I got to do. I'm just, but Chris, in all seriousness, God is my witness. I prayed hard for you that night when you were in that.
No, I truly appreciate you reaching out.
Stayed up with you, and I was like, man, oh man, I was worried about you. Really and truly, though, I got to be honest. I just want to see a haunting we will go. I was like, if he's made it, I was like, is the haunting we will go safe? Is it a place where I can go and retrieve it after your demise? All I'm asking. I just want to make sure it's okay, because I want to see it. If I had already seen it, then I probably would have been like, oh, Chris, I got to go, man.
I promise it's going to be worth watching more than once.
Oh, I hope
Of
so.
course.
And I'm joking, Chris. But anyways, guys, I got to go. Once again, the most endearing, handsome gentleman, Chris Garetano, the beautiful and very intelligent Josh Turner. Thank you. Good night. I'm joking. It's Monica. And then, of course, me. Campbell Soup is good food, fat head wolf. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. We love you. Thank you for everything, and good night.
Take care, everyone.
Monica and Chris, Monica Rawlins, Chris Garetano, we got to run, but we'll be back. We'll be back on Sunday, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Okay. We're not even sure exactly. We have about 4, 5, 6 different things we've been kicking around. Anthony's got one he wants to talk about. I think it's boring and stupid, so we probably won't. Nellie's got one
What
she wants
else
to
is
talk
new?
about, and I think it's ridiculous, so we probably won't. And then I have one that we want to talk about that everybody would like and enjoy. We'll probably go with it.
It's okay. They all know that you abuse us.
Especially now that Texas lost.
And that we all do this against our will and begrudgingly, and
Yeah, exactly.
and that we secretly hate you and this and that and yada yada.
Yada yada yada. And Texas lost, so now I'm really mad.
Yeah.
Where's my breakfast?
Yeah. My breakfast, woman. Stupid damn. Damn it. I'm hungry. Damn woman, make my foods.
It's ridiculous. Of course, I got to endure Texas losing. you know, and then I woke up and I'm still me. All right, folks. We love you, and we'll see you. We'll see you day after tomorrow. Good night. Give her a cranberry.